Hello, my friends. So, as per usual, we usually wait the first couple minutes out. So, I'd like to welcome you. I would say if you're not watching live, it'll be around the 10-minute mark. I'll try not to put on music that'll get dinged because I know that happened last night. So, that actually stopped people from being able to watch that further, I think. So, I got to fix that, and I certainly will. But for now, we'll see you in about 10 minutes. Come down. Hit that like button if you want to spread it, because I didn't see it pop up just at first. I got an update for Kitty. I will say, just to not keep you in suspense, I'm seeing some good news. So I'd like to share that with you today. But it'll just be a couple moments or so, because I would like to get into the main content. I will be giving you new stuff that has come in, and I just haven't had time to do a video. So I think that you guys deserve this information as soon as possible, and I'll just drop it here today too. So that's what we're doing, and then we'll have a chat. We'll have a chat, because I know things are picking up a little bit around here. Let's see what I can get. Poor little kitty. I'm like yelling into his ear. But let's do some Bach. See you in about 8 minutes. Enjoy. Why do you do this, Bach? Oh, the music stopped again? Oh. I'm sorry that the music stopped again. It's like it needs me to bounce it back. Let's try it like this. Yeah, he's really tiny. So, yeah, we'll talk about that soon. Here, he's prettier for the next couple of minutes. Okay. Probably stop at that part. And we'll let a moment for the buffering. Sorry for that weird noise. That must have sounded really weird. It was the cord going off the hinge. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. It's great to see some familiar faces in chat and a couple ones that I haven't seen before. So it's good to see you. It's Good to see you all. For those that were wondering, that is Bach. That is his cello suite #1. There is a more complete version you can find online. I'll even post it for you if you like it. That's one of my favorite stringed. And I really like his I guess piano and harpsichord, but his strings are good too. All right. So I want to say hello to everybody in chat real quick. I'm going to do a quick update on Kitty and hello to everybody. So if you are just coming in, maybe the 20-minute mark or so, we'll get started. So I want to say hi, Vic. It's good to see you. You were the first in, indeed. Brittany, Christian, it's good to see you. Winter Rose is also here. I don't know if I've seen Winter Rose. I feel like I've heard that name before. So it's good to see you. Good to see you. And we have Brittany. I think if I haven't said her name already. Yes, I did. A couple other people too, I'm sure, waiting in the lurking around, and that's totally cool. That's totally cool. Nothing wrong with the lurk. Nothing wrong with the lurk. So, quick update on Kitty. He would have never, in the past 48 hours, come this close in this area because I moved around a little bit too much for him. So he wanted to remain close by, but on the sides. So the fact that he's right here, I'll give you another shot of him. We'll just we can chat about him just real quick. Someone mentioned they saw how small he was, and you can kind of see here, right? If I go like this, that's his backbone, and you can see it. So he didn't have much weight to start with, and he has lost a lot of weight. Now, the good news here. When I said ocular signs yesterday, I might be wrong, which is good. He had a little bit of a stone look to him, of course, and his pupils were dilated, but that's not necessarily signs of the virus going into ocular form, which is good for his chances. Furthermore, how he's responding to the medication. The first day, I mean, there's not much of a response at first, unless it's a rejection, and I was worried about signs of rejection. So I thought I saw some things like that, and I was worried. I told them, they said, maybe, hold on, you know what I mean? Don't overthink it. Just wait until about the 40-hour mark or so. And we're a little bit before that, and he's already showing improvement. So I don't want to bother him and do the tests I keep doing, the observances or whatnot. But his eyes are much, much better, especially, like before any drugs or anything. He's a little bit drowsy right now because he had food, and they want to sleep off food. The fact that he's coming closer to me because he was a little tiny more distant in the past couple days, but that's a good sign. Things are getting more regular in the litter department. So I don't want to go too much into that because it's kind of gross, you know what I mean? And it looks like there's some actual process. Now, the thing you got to keep worrying about, as you can see, there's a little bit, well, you can't see it. He's hiding the belly. He knows how to show his best side, I guess. Still got that belly. And it's not growing as fast as I thought, or as fast as it was when I came back from the last vet visit. This was my biggest worry, was what's called an ascity. And the ascites, it was growing really fast after the second draining. But it seems to have slowed, although it is still there, but that's a normal thing. But what I'm thinking was that I would have already had to go back for a draining, and then that gets really complicated and gets worse and worse and worse, and he's donezo. This is the biggest worry. This is the biggest worry because he is tiny. He has always been tiny. And very, very sleek and slick. And he obviously always had this virus. It could have been something to do with that. But he didn't have much to lose in the first place. And he has definitely lost weight. Definitely. Big time. So the worry is that can he get it back? Can he get it back? If we can do that, then we're rocking, I'm pretty sure. And I think I'm starting to see signs of better eating habits. Like he's not frantic to eat everything in front of him, although he certainly is hungry. He wants to regain weight, and you got to be careful about confusing one with the other. He is eating, but not too much. He's not necessarily emptying the bowl. It's not 100% regular. but it looks like things are looking up. So we'll see how it goes. That is the reason for the steroids. Of course, the steroids are not something that you want to use for no good reason. But in this case, he does need that stimulus to start counteracting the effects of the weight loss. The physiological symptoms are the biggest fear right now, considering how there doesn't seem to be a sign of either ocular or neurological disorder from it. That's the big and best news. And it also, with the treatment, it's much more affordable, much more. And that is a big deal too. That's a big, big deal. So, because this stuff is expensive. The way it works is this drug is not normally, I'll pull back up. Give me 1 second. And we'll let it buffer. So yeah, it's not cheap. I can go in the affordable range for like a good bit of time. I'm pretty sure I got this kind of thing. You know what I mean? So don't worry about that. But what I mean is that the drug is very expensive because it's like that drug is only supposed to be for Ebola for humans. So let's just put it that way. It's not like, straight through. And there are expenses with that, I guess. So understandably, the costs are higher. That's how supply and demand works. And if it's like ocular or neurological, it can get very, 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 very costly, to the point where it's like there was no chance, that it could happen. This is a good sign, what we're seeing here. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. Twanger, lurk around, man. You're free to lurk. You do it. No worries. No worries. So the reason why I came is I am missing some time over the past week or so. But the stuff I was talking about with David, Jeff's cousin, is very important. So just give me a moment to get through it here, because I'll just go through my phone, and I need to make sure I'm not reading out anything that is, like revealing like names, identities, things like that. So I just want to. I think it's probably been a while, hey? Probably since I released that video, since I gave, and I did read one of the emails that were important, but not all of it. So let me see. 6 days ago, because he didn't understand about I know this was one thing people were worried about, and that's understandable for sure. He didn't know about cremation and things like that, and the funeral home, because hi Chief, by the way. And so that was a little bit weird, you know what I mean? And that's understandable. So I asked him about that. I followed up. Someone asked about it, and I was like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And I was probably going to do it anyways. And I went to them, and I said, "Do you know about the the funeral home itself and things like that?" And he was like, "I'm not sure. I'll check it out." So he said, "I've received confirmation that Jeff was cremated." Okay. So that should clear that question up that you guys had. It was a long time ago. It was about a week ago, and I'm sorry that it has taken this long for me to catch up to you guys. It's just there was so much going on that like the things flying in, I could barely remember. So the next one that I have, I'm just basically saying, I sent him a message saying, "Thank you for the reply and the confirmation. I hope my last message hasn't scared you off," because questions like that can be a little bit personal, and it did take him a little bit, because I think there was a little bit of a, well, we had John Canada message about like family members and things like that right after, which was I think 6 days ago around this time. So I was also worried about that. So I wanted to make sure that he was okay. And I said, with info drops like this, there will always be those that wish to obfuscate the facts, like we've been talking about. I'm not trying to like scare him or anything like that. I'm just like, this is how this works. Some people had something to gain from the lack of closure. And when there is things that point to closure, and I'm going to be dropping much more of it here, and much more inside information as to who Jeff was, I think is really good. But I'm trying to let him, as well as you guys, know that people will try and obfuscate proofs, facts, and everything like that to keep this sense of no closure. So be really careful about that. Continuing on, well, I can only speculate to a degree. The patterns become more clear the more you stick around, because he was asking. I think he was even asking about it. Do I get a message? Do I have something else here, or maybe I'm just like preemptively worrying? Oh, I'll read. I'm sorry, I missed one that was right before. Oh, and I have another picture for you as well. I can do that as well. I'm so sorry I missed this. This was also 6 days ago, so it was the same day as the first one he sent. Said, "Hi Avidan, Justin. I'll just read this out. I'm not trying to like boast my ego." He said, "Well done on the video. I'm impressed. I think people out there still doubt my story. I've attached another video of myself and Jeff at a young age. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to get my message out. I'm not profiting off of this or benefiting in any way. Thank you, David." He usually doesn't say David at the end, but it's like a thanks, comma, and then I don't see anything else. So I just add his name there. Let's see if I can get this picture. Let's see. That's Jeff, who's the older kid, looking in. He kind of kept his hair the whole time. And this is probably backwards, I think, for you guys, or maybe it's just for me. For Avidian, that's, I mean, nobody spells my name right. Nobody, no. So, yeah, and he timestamped it on that day. Maybe you can flip that around for me. Do me a solid. I think I see 1/18, 2021. Okay, and yeah, he did have, yeah, and it's like straight, maybe a little tiny bit of red in there because he definitely has some red hair in his family, but it's like not overtaking. There's still a lot that straight brown kind of thing going on. Oh, sorry, kitty. Yeah, I'll post more of this. I asked him to send some more pictures. I think it might be a good thing for you guys just to see, just so because I mean, like if you see one picture at like 5 years old or something, and then like 5 years old or whatever he was, I know there's a difference in looks, and I get that stuff. So I did ask him to send some more. Hopefully we'll be able to do that and see some more pictures, because I think those were some of the greatest things, and also it really kind of puts the nails in the coffin as to his veracity. He does. I would like to talk about the doubt thing. So he's worried that he's going to convince everybody, and at least from what I think, and that'll never happen because there's people that are vested in, thinking maybe he's still alive or letting other people think that he's still alive, things like that. So that'll never happen. And I guess I was just explaining these things. These things happen. So let's see. Let's see where I left off, because I know I'm jumping around here a little bit. I got the confirmation that he was cremated. And I'll read out what I read out before, just to keep it in sequence. We're going back into sequence there now, and it will continue. So this is what I read a couple days ago. Hi, Avidan, Justin. For your information, someone is trying, not really, someone is trying to steal your video and pass it off as theirs. He thought that was the case, but I was asking people to re-upload and things like that. So yeah, don't worry about that. Just to read it out verbatim. Some additional information. Jeff's brother found his passwords to his YouTube and Patreon on a piece of paper. So hopefully they can gain control of his channel and or his account. And I think that is a, oh, sorry, the nails in the coffin, just turn figure of speech. Sorry about that. I mean, as towards like any questions of his veracity will die with that, I think, as he keeps putting out pictures. So I am just continuing on here because, yeah, sorry about that. Number 2, Jeff apparently suffered migraines for years. He was admitted to the hospital with a mini aneurysm in 2006. Since then, he was under close observation by a neurologist. So this is a big deal. Okay, if we have earlier. He was admitted before in 2006, like way back in the day, and he suffered migraines for years, as we did. I'm pretty sure we heard. This is really important information to take into account if you're worried about, suspicious death. This is a big deal. Furthermore, his third point says Jeff's dad had an aneurysm before he died, so the problem runs in the family. Another big piece of information. Okay, so I think a lot of people can actually find some peace here by this. This very well could have been natural, and I think that the one that I haven't read out yet, which is coming, I just received that yesterday. Bear this stuff in mind when we get to that point. Okay. Number 4, Jeff always wanted to be the center of attention. So when he couldn't make it with his music, he started his YouTube channel, which supported him and his bills as he lived alone and had no day job. So this is a big deal. Okay. It tells a side of Jeff that you didn't see before, and you're going to see more of it now in the next message. Really bear in mind the failed, well, not failed. Okay, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody here, but I guess he wanted to be a musician that could support himself on his music, and it didn't seem that it was going that way. Now, that doesn't mean that he was only here for trying to make money. I did get the sense that he did want to make this a business, which is, I'm not necessarily against that. I think that if you want actual talent, they need to have a way to support that. So I get that. This was during a time though where it was still stigma to even think about that kind of stuff. So often he did try and hide this intent. That's important to note. Okay, I'm not trying to bash him or anything like that. I think this shows the reality or the reality of who he is. If you look into a lot of narcissists, they do get a lot of them tend to be, not all though, and I don't even think a majority, but it is common to see that they're failed artists, and then they try and get into something else, like be a leader of some community, church, political group, things like that. You will see a common that strand among a lot of maybe intellectual narcissists. So I'm not like an expert psychologist or anything. So definitely, do your own information on that. But you will see a connection there, and it makes a lot of sense with their personality. Now, last point, number 5. My sister thought he was very intelligent, but he was a lot like his mom. If you had an opinion that he didn't agree with, then watch out. He always thought very highly of himself, but deep down, he had low self-esteem. Hope this is helpful, and thanks, David. I'll just add that part. Another really important thing that I didn't get into well enough because I was kind of like really passionate in the time that I read this the first time. So we see the brightness that's there, and I think that he really was in it for truth, but there was also an ego that got in the way. And the reason why this is important to talk about is if he is unable to control himself, like we all have our own tics, and if people can identify these tics, they can use them against you. With narcissists, it's mostly impossible to break. Of course, like even Saul was knocked off his horse. Okay, so I'm not saying it's impossible, especially when God is involved, right? I'm not saying that, but from a psychological standpoint and psychiatric standpoint, once those symptoms appear, it's very hard, if not impossible, to ever get that person to be aware of it, which means you can't treat it. That's a big problem. If you are in a truth movement and you're trying to push truth, you're going to have people that disagree with you. It's going to happen. And people can take advantage of that if they profile you. Okay? Smart people can push those buttons, just like I was able to push these buttons in the past 24 hours. This is what I'm showing you right now, that by scouting, and then once you identify patterns and you keep pressing that button, you keep seeing the same thing. This is why I'm doing this stuff. If you keep doing that, you may not see it, you may not even notice it's there, but it can happen. And people will pick up on this stuff. I was trying to reveal it to you guys that could see in the public eye what was going on. I'm doing it to reveal things. Some people don't do it to help you out. Okay, they do it to disrupt things. This is the most important take from what I was doing over the past 24 hours. Some people know how to do this stuff, and they are doing it for bad reasons. And we're going to get into the next email, and it will explain a little bit more about how Jeff was probably pushed off the edge, and he came in with this with maybe an unhealthy mental mindset, and it makes things worse over time. Okay, so this is where it's really important. And I'm sorry if I miss any chat. Yeah, and sorry, I will mention this though. Chi says, Jeff mentioned several times YouTube turned into his only source of income. I'm definitely not saying that he was hiding it forever. I haven't really been watching over the past 4 or 5 years, so he probably became more open about it. And in my opinion, I think some problems could have been solved if like that could have just happened immediately, and it was the atmosphere of this place that you feel bad to make money off this stuff. And I get that. I have never monetized. I have no plans to monetize, but some people, they feel like they should be compensated, and Jeff was one of those people. And I don't think it would have been a big deal if the atmosphere was there that he could make this a business to do his talents. You know what I mean? Just, I guess, bear this stuff in mind. Bear this stuff in mind. There's nothing wrong necessarily with making money off. Even being a truther on YouTube. It depends what the motives are, and you can't tell the motives. But if you have someone that is using their talents, I don't know other than like there is passionate drive, of course, but you also do have to be in this world, So I can see a lot of people that way, if they don't have another source of income or anything like that, they should be at least entitled to try if people want to give their money. You know what I mean? To hide it, once you start hiding it and you're ashamed of it, but you don't want to show that you're monetizing. I saw a lot of that, and then that became like problems, because like once you start doing that stuff under the table, you know what I mean? Like you start to be able to justify a lot more other things. And I think that was a problem in the movement. And I hope that was one thing that kind of got cleared up a little bit. If people want to give to Patreon and stuff like that to people that they value, that should be their prerogative. You know what I mean? So, but at the same time, yes, it has complications. I'm not saying that it's without problem. Jeff, I think, if he was more incentivized for money, he always stuck to the truth for the most part, or at least what he believed to be truth. It didn't mean that he was right all the time, but I think that he was really focused on telling the truth about current events, or at least what he could, and expose lies that were happening. So like I think to me that he was a very valuable service, especially compared to some other content creators that were constantly making clickbait topic stuff. So yeah, I think that could have solved some problems, to be honest. He wouldn't need to have had like a circle. He wouldn't need to have just focused on fame or loyalty, stuff like that. Maybe he could have done things a little bit more on his own, and maybe could have flourished a little more. I don't know if that would have. Did you see any of this play out over the past 5 years? I've also heard that he has gotten better over the past 5 years, or he had gotten better over the past 5 years. So that could have been the case. That could have been the case. Okay, so we're going to get into that last one as well. That will spell out a little bit more of the mental mindset that he was in, I guess, right before he died. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to drag my feet here. I once again moved out of here. Okay. So his last message to me, this was this morning it was late night, I guess, last night. And I promise I'll get to the chat after this. We'll chat. So sorry if I missed anything. I haven't been looking that much. It was just lucky I saw Chi's comment. Okay, so here we go. I was telling him why I haven't been So I haven't been talking to him so much about my cat. So just a heads up on that. I said, or he said, "Hi, Abidan. My thoughts and prayers are with your dear cat. I lost my own cat a few years ago, and it's not easy. I hope he gets the care and medicine he needs. Sorry, I can't be much help with that. I was asking for info about everything like that. I'll post all this information. I don't think that the one that I sent was all. I was looking through it to see if it was worth reading. I don't think so. I'm just like, my own verbosity. I think his information is a lot more important. But I'll release all this once I'm able to get like names that aren't going to expose anybody that needs not be exposed. So moving on, I spoke to Jeff's mom, or my aunt, Jeff's mom, earlier today, and I obtained some interesting information. This includes the following, and there's a lot here. So this is the new content. This is some big stuff into the mind of Jeff. Number one, Jeff lived in constant fear for his life. He received lots of threats to his life that intensified over the last 5 years before his death. One in particular was quite blatant, and was from an individual who claimed to be from American intelligence. My aunt has since kept this email in the hope of trying to track this individual down. Let that sink in for a moment. Was that person actually American intelligence? Or is it someone pretending to be so that they could just scare him? Was it someone who covertly thought he was an enemy, a threat, competition? We don't know. And I'm not trying to create suspense or anything like that, but these are the things you got to think about, what's going on in the undercurrents of this truth movement. Okay. Number two, Jeff's paranoia increased before his death. Listen to this. This is kind of hard stuff. So just, I'm going to read this back over, okay? And I want to preface this actually before I read it. And I'm sorry to keep you waiting. It's not about that. It is about the problems of radicalization in this movement. If you feel like you're in despair and without hope, there is by the nature of people who are drawn to this movement, and I'm not saying crazies. What I'm saying are people that are very they want to learn facts, and they're not necessarily believing the mainstream, and they may not understand that they could be manipulated. Okay, so I'm just prefacing this. None of this I condone. I think that this is not none of this is something that shows signs of health mentally, and it's not something I recommend. Okay, and if you're feeling in these ways that these things need to happen, then it might be beneficial to you to step away from this kind of thing and maybe find things that are a little bit more productive. And I'm not trying to talk anybody down. I'm just saying that this is kind of a big deal to the point where I need to say that before I read it out. Okay. So that being said, number two, Jeff's paranoia increased before his death. A machete and large knife was found beside his bed. He was practicing with his bow and arrow set in his basement in case he ever had to use it. Okay. That's heavy stuff into a mind that has been tortured by someone or a group of people. And I mean, maybe we can't identify who that is. I sensed that Jeff was in much pain, and for all those who think I hate this man, because he probably had a lot of hatred towards me. They don't forgive people that expose these things. But I thought that whatever happened here was the culmination of a lot of pain. And the natural causes, this starts making a lot of sense to me, because he looked stressed out when I first saw him. And this was 2014. This was late 2014. So, his complexion was not good. He always had a stress on his face. Even when he was laughing, there was a childish helplessness that was there, I guess. And I saw that. I saw pain. I didn't know where it comes from, but I think that it's important upon reading this that we address and focus on the importance of not becoming radicalized by forces that are trying to push you into that position. Okay? This is important stuff. There are people out there that are banking on the truth movement to become lone wolves. They are banking on you to feel desperate and helpless and go crazy and do something stupid. They're counting on that. You can see it all throughout the news. All throughout the news, not just the truth movement, many different types of groups, okay? This is clearly an invested amount of resources on the mainstream. There's no reason to think that there aren't invested resources in this movement as well to push it on the other end. There are many people being manipulated, whether they know it or not, in content creation. I don't think that this, yeah, so sorry, I didn't mean to break this. Someone mentioned he was probably attacked hard or targeted psychologically. Yes, there's no doubt in my mind that someone was psychologically torturing him. And I don't know if it was intelligence. It may not be. It could be just people who have something to gain by bumping him out. And they don't have any empathy, even though they want to pretend that they have empathy. There's a whole bunch of different reasons that explain this, but what I'm starting to see is that it's less and less plausible that he was attacked, like actually attacked by, say, like a directed energy weapon. I mean, there's a plausible, at least there's a more plausible explanation that he's had these problems for 14 years. He's talked about these problems constantly online, and his father had the same problem. So that to me looks more plausible than an actual, DEW or something like that. So you have to look at natural causes. And I'm pretty sure the stress from being in this movement doesn't help with migraines and blood clots or whatever that is that causes that. We got to be very careful about what this movement makes us. I'm not saying go away from it necessarily. I know I did in the past. I'm not sure if I was wrong on that. But at the very least, you have to be aware of the undercurrents of this movement that you may not see as non-content creators. They are manipulating en masse, but that's much less directed and much less targeted as what you see on the inside of the content creation. They push people to their edge, and there must be some sort of, if they're going to invest this many resources on mainstream, if they're going to invest this many, which I believe invest this many resources here, they're going to want a return on that investment, and the return is you being radicalized. Always remember this. I still have one more point. I couldn't go through that one without addressing it fast. Number 3 is not much less, but it gives a little bit of further context, but it's not as intense like that, but they're still there. Number 3, and this is the final point. Jeff had planned on moving to the countryside for his safety. And I think this confirms a lot of what people were saying. He's looking at trees, he wants to get out, he wants to do things. He's telling people to do things. It's often projection. This is what he wants to do. Jeff had planned on moving to the countryside for safety. He was in the process of renovating and putting up drywall with the hopes of selling his house as soon as possible. Based on this new information, I honestly don't know what to believe. Thank you and God bless. Derek. And it looks like, to me, or Derek or David, he went by Derek just to help his identity out, and then he went by David. So I see both names and I read them out. Like, you're seeing a journey with him as well. I think it goes into the spiritual, and I'll release, the things I've said to him as well. But, I told him that, listen, the plausible explanation here is it could have been very likely that it was natural. And we might not know at the end of the day, ever know what happened. Maybe we can, but I don't know. This could be it. This could be the most closure I can see. I know I keep saying that, but with this natural history, this medical history in the family, I think he can be a lot more at peace. And that's what I told him. Although we can't ignore the mental health issues that can become a plague in this movement if you're not careful. Okay. It's very intense. Over this past 24 hours, I was not affected. Okay, let's put it this way. And I'm not going to just ban people that disagree with me, that people are saying. It's not going to happen. Okay, I think people who have been around now for long enough, they understand that that's not what I'm at here. I don't like people that try and disrupt the conversation of this kind of stuff. I do like these chats and I value them. And if people try to interrupt that because they can't handle what's being said, that's what I deal with. For the most part, I want people disagreeing with me to feel like they can disagree. I think that's really important. If we don't do that, that's one step towards radicalization, because you can't hear the other side. And I think people need you to feel that way if they want to profit. And intelligence communities are invested in you to eventually do that. So these are things that you have to bear in mind if you continue being around these areas. Things are not what they seem to your non-content creator. They are not what they seem. Jeff was paranoid. I know that. And there might be times as well where, for his own, say that he went on a rant or something like that, maybe he did use paranoia that was real and as an excuse. Maybe maybe it was overhyped at times, but I know that it was also for real many times. And because I see it, I've had it happen with me and things like that. And if I wasn't ready for it, I wouldn't be talking about it. So what has happened to me or what I did over the past 24 hours to attract this attention, to try and give you guys maybe a heads up on this, is a big warning. You don't know people that are content creators. You don't, and you won't see it if you're not watching out for it until it's too late. You have to be careful when you're here. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be here. I'm saying that if you don't start looking at the warning signs, you could be the next problem that people consider a threat. Okay? All right. That was some heavy stuff. I will quickly go through the chat just to see if there's anything that really needs to be addressed from after that. Just type in Abidan, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm still waiting on a reply and more information. I told him keep it coming, and I think he wants to share this with you guys as he's working through it himself. I'm getting that sense from this guy. I don't think this is going to be the last piece of information, and I'm not trying to just hype up this channel or something like this. What you're looking at here is a man who's trying to find his cousin posthumously. He wants to know more, and I know that many of you want to know more, and he wants to share. I think he genuinely wants to share, and I'm sorry that I haven't been able to get this guys to you. I felt really bad about this, so I'm glad that I've had this time to be able to just put it all there, especially with last night's message. I think it really ties into things very well. And now that looks like there's a normalization with Kitty, looks like there's going to be more of a normalization of what I can do, functions and things like that. And I promise I will be on top of this like white on rice, man. Okay. So just quickly go through the chat. I might buffer for a moment, and then I'm going to take just a maybe 5-10 minute break just to kind of cool off. If I could ask you, if you think that this is important content, please like it, just so that I can bump this a little bit more in the ratings, because I know it gets kind of shut down by people that don't want to talk it. There's like reports that go in and it stops that kind of thing. I think that's what's going on here in this channel, which is okay. Don't worry. This needs to get to enough people so it snowballs. That's all. Okay. So if you think this is important, please press a like, and you are more than welcome to upload or re-upload any of this. And if you have criticisms or anything like that, don't worry. You do whatever you need. Okay. This information needs to snowball. That's all. And I don't care from which channel it is. Just needs to get out there. Okay. So let me see. I really don't like the living in fear thing. It's sad, really sad. I went through a period where I feared for my life too. Yeah, this is important. This is important. He's not the only one. A lot of people aren't the only one. And sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's meant to look like it's warranted when it's really just meant to manipulate you. So my biggest, if you do plan staying, right, is you observe, don't react, okay? And don't go taking people's words for it. I know that I'm giving you this email. I will produce the receipts. Don't just go take my words for it. Observe me too. Let me be the first example at this moment. Is this stuff cogent? Is this stuff cogent with reality? Can you reproduce the results in some way? This is the problem with you guys, the problem with you guys. I'm talking about with non-content creators. Often you don't have the chance to observe it or replicate instances where you can observe it. Okay? I'm doing that. I was doing that for you over the past 24 hours. And those that could see, can't see. But there is an element that wants you, or many elements, multiple elements that want to radicalize you and make you feel in fear. And the best thing that I could say to you guys, first off, the more important thing is to read your Bible. Read your Bible. And like, don't leave out the Old Testament either. The Old Testament is the book of people that make mistakes for going their own way. Okay? But the epistles are very, very strong messages. Learning John, the words that Jesus said to Pharisees, which is very comparable to many things like narcissism. Okay? Read Jesus's words. Read Jesus's words in John. Look at Acts. But the epistles specifically of Paul, he's very, very keeps you base, and he calls out the same things you'll see that you saw 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and 2 minutes ago in the chat rooms. Things like that. This is your best defense. Read your Bibles, okay? Secondly is the observe. Don't just react to everything you see. Don't feel like you need, because I know that I'll start taking heat. The more, if I press buttons, I know I take heat. Don't feel like you need to defend me. In fact, question me. Question me. Some of the best comments that were here yesterday were not ones that agreed with me or anything like that. They were the ones from concerned individuals and saying, listen, this is a dangerous road to go down, especially if you're in your Bible. You know what I mean? We are not to operate in darkness. And I hope that this gives you a little bit more assurance that I'm not trying to do manipulative tactics just for the sake of show or anything like that. I don't like doing that kind of stuff. And it's also a lot of heat that it doesn't affect me like psychologically like it did when I had to deal with it the first time with Jeff. But it can over time. If I think that this is like the best way to do things and I go my own way, you know what I mean? I need people to rebuke me on that. Those were some of the best comments, keeping me base, iron, as I said yesterday, sharpens iron. So these are important, and please disagree with me, please, on many different levels. I get that, and it's important that I am even the first person to, you know, okay. So, but observe, don't react. Observe, don't react. Ask questions. You can ask questions. You can learn more. You can see how this works. Look for patterns. It's very important to ask questions. This is what they want you to stop doing. And this is what I was kind of pushing on too. They want you to feel ashamed to ask questions. They want you to feel ashamed to have a conversation that, some guy and his 12 sock puppet accounts want to show that you need to stop having this conversation, or an inner circle of people that you need to stop having this conversation. There's a reason for that. It wants to make you afraid to talk about things where people are trying to control a narrative. Once you start getting that pushback, something's going down. You're hitting something they don't want you hitting. Okay. And when you deal with that stuff, if you want to stay in the truth movement and look for truth, this is how you investigate. This is how you investigate. But it comes with a price if you're not prepared for it. And that price is your sanity. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding with that. I've experienced it. You can see it. You can see it yourself at We'll Do It Live, the WDIL network. You can see a degeneration of my mental state as I was dealing with breaking from narcissistic abuse. Luckily enough, I started to understand how this kind of things works. And when I come back now, 5 years later, I know what to expect. I know the type of tricks that naturally happen when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. So it doesn't hit me as hard, but it's not something I want to deal with here. You know what I mean? What is important is that try and get what you can over the past 24, 36 hours or whatever that I've been trying to show this stuff, and learn, observe, just observe, and don't just take my word for it. Just look for patterns, see if they can be replicated in the future. Do they replicate themselves naturally in the future? These things are important. You got to start looking at a mind like that and not just seeing something and how you feel about it. Okay, this is how they want you to feel. That's how they want you to act. They want you to instinctively go with your emotion. Instinctively go with your emotion, because they can't do anything else but that. So they need you to do it. It's for the rational minds to observe, step back. Don't emotionally react. Don't think that you know what needs to be done right away. Observe. Don't take people's word for it. Just see if the patterns will happen. If the patterns happen, you're looking at a pathological, well, you can get a good chance of inkling that you're looking at a pathological individual. You can see for yourself by pressing those buttons again. And I'm not saying to torture pathological individuals, because that is not what you want to go down. Like on a sustained path, I'm talking about for observation wise. You do it to make a point. Can you replicate it? And once you see that, you know that if you can do it, smarter or more studied, and more nefarious figures can also do it. And they probably are. And I think that's what you're seeing. I think that's what you're seeing with Jeff. This is what's going. This is the result of a man who saw something wrong with the world. He couldn't deal with his own emotions. He couldn't deal with his own complexes, which we all have. Okay. And he stepped into something he wasn't prepared for. And it ruined any chance of mental health that he could have had. Even though he contributed so much to this community, I get that. Okay. But there's a price that happens on people. And you have, even as a non-content creator, you have to be wary of that. If you don't, it will affect your sanity. 100% it will. I promise you, it will. You may not see it, but it will. So, am I okay? The light will always shine over the darkness. Amen. Amen. And that's what we're called to do. Okay? It is God. It is God and his truth that is to be our guiding light, not our emotions. He tells us time and time again. He berates us in the Bible time and time again. If we go with our own feelings, if we go thinking that we can go on our own way, if we feel that we can sin, which means moving or being off the mark, instead of his mark, you're going your own way. That's what sinning is. Okay? If we think that that's okay, he forgives us past, present, and future sins if you are saved. That's what I strongly believe. But that doesn't mean that you're free to do whatever you want and then just not have any consequences. Okay, and this is the problem with sin. It often keeps your mental mind away from the way, the truth. Okay, and when you start veering off, that's the time that what one could describe as evil or satanic forces, you could say whatever, believe it or not, I'm trying to reach to as many people as I can, not just Christians here, okay? But what one we can agree on, satanic forces, I guess you could say, that's when they can start manipulating you. Because with these egos, with these veering off the path, become tendencies. And this is why they tell us you need to keep your guard up. All the books of the Bible, you have to realize that as you stray from the word, or as you stray from truth, as you try and hide things, there are others that can pick up on it and take advantage of it. We believe it's Satan as believers. Okay, we believe it's evil spirit or whatnot. Not going to get into that kind of demonology here. Okay, but it doesn't stop at Christians. Okay, people, narcissists is the secular term, and psychopaths are the ones that you're dealing with that will torture narcissists to get them to do what they want. Okay, these are the people that are the ones that they're too smart for you to pick up on. This is the kind of person that if I didn't watch myself, I could become, because there's an addiction, actually, kind of, when you realize that you've been abused by narcissists for much of your life. The addiction is that you like seeing this happen. You have to be careful about that. So that's another thing too. When you observe, don't fall into a trap that this is some game. Okay, because these are people's minds, and you have to be very, very mindful of that, even if they cannot figure it out themselves. They don't understand what they do. This is what Jesus was talking about. They don't understand it. So I think I'm going to get hit for this. You know what I mean? And I may have to do things that reveal the truth. And please bear with me on that. And please know that I take this very seriously. And I will be listening to anybody who's willing to give to sharpen iron. I am absolutely down for that. And it's important that I do. Okay. It's important that you question me. But more importantly right now, is you do not need to feel like if you see me getting attacked somehow or whatever, you do not need to feel that you have to protect me. Don't feel that way. That's also how they get you. That noble protection mechanism that we have, they play on that. They hate that the most because it's one that is, I believe, comes from true nobility, or like a nobility of mind. That sounded a little bit occultic. I'm not trying to sound occultic with that. It comes from a good place, I think. And it can consume you without even knowing it, and you think you're doing the right thing. So you don't need to feel like you need to offend me or protect me. Okay, don't worry about that stuff. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick break because I know there's a lot, and we can get into the chat. I want to say hello to everybody that's here. I thank you for giving me a chance after looking at what was going on, what the buttons that I was pressing. I really appreciate that. And the second I get more information, I can get it out about Derek. Or Derek David, however he calls himself, I will. And I want to thank you for coming, and you're more than welcome to stay, but it will be chat from here on in after that. So I don't want to waste any more of your time, because this is important stuff, and I really would like those who don't want to stick by the chat too to ponder this, but I'm sure we can address it more, because this is heavy stuff that needs to be talked about. Okay, let me see if I can get some music on for you while I'm gone. This is really tense stuff. Tense stuff. But it can't be ignored. pizza commercials.
Expected as the Saxon telephone. New slices and sticks. Just
Really, YouTube? 15-second commercial, no skip? I gotta feed my cat. I'll be right back. For those in here. Very disgusting. Okay, guys. Thanks for those that stayed. I want to say hello to the people still in chat there. We have Brittany, Sister of Knights. We have Anna Katz. Good to see you. And lots of people still, I'm guessing, watching. Vixart, Twanger, I'm glad to have you here and contributing. So, anything that you want to ask, anything like that, you can just do. Just type my name in it, just so that it highlights, so that I'm able to see a little bit better. Because yeah, it can get intense if we hit a certain topic and people want to chat. So yeah, just remember to put that in so I can read it out there for you, and I'll start looking what we got there. Okay. So, watched so many videos and read a lot. When I was young, I looked up why mothers are jealous of daughters and said about narcissism. My mom always seemed so jealous, and I felt like you don't have a mom. She behaved like a schoolgirl, ugly, competitive, very competitive. Okay. It certainly seems like it's in your cluster B of DSM. I think it's C. Yeah, cluster B. Now, it has been changed a lot in DSM-5, but that's heavily debated as to its veracity. The corruption of science has been pretty disgusting over the past few years. I like to go with the DSM-4 when it comes to behavioral disorders, and so there is one of the big things in narcissism is a breakdown, or in many of the cluster B is a breakdown of the boundary between generations in family. So like a mom might try to be more like a friend and things like that. It's not necessarily narcissism, okay? Because I'm pretty sure borderline can account for that, and histrionic personality disorder can also do those kind of things. So, be careful not to label those close to you as a narcissist without, continuing to observe and look into these things. But this would be a sign that there is a, if you see signs like this, okay, there's a good sign that it has affected you in some way. Okay, all cluster B it has a lot of pathology to it. I'm gonna hide that just because I think I know who it is, but I can get to it a little later. These are not healthy. I mean, they're disorders to begin with. So, and we can have these things without it being a full-blown disorder or pathological disorder, which is the biggest thing about it, right? We can all have these effects on us. And it's important to research these effects so you're not, and not overthinking it as well, because that can really get rough, like on your own mental health. And we can't self-diagnose. So just be careful as you're reading it that you don't think you know too much, you know what I mean? But yeah, the problem with if you've been abused like that or whatnot, if you've experienced the effects of these disorders, is that you can be, especially when it comes to your parents, it's very normalized in your mind, so you don't pick up on these things. It's my theory that because I would send Jeff's videos to a lot of people that I knew that were may not affected by this kind of stuff, and they thought they couldn't get past, like, his very passionate way that a lot of people thought was normal, but it's not normal the way he was acting. And due to this normalization in our minds beforehand, we can fall trap to these things, and people are looking out for that, and naturally or planned. So it's good. We will never know our own hearts, but it's important to observe. It's important to observe how this could have affected us. And again, we can't just place our faith fully in psychology, because you will never know the full heart. I highly recommend reading the Bible, reading what Jesus said. This explains a lot. And then when you go, you will see the similarities of when you get into the psychology of things. Trust all things by the word. Sciences can be corrupted. Okay? The word never corrupts, never changes. No matter what people tell you, the word of God is eternal. That being said, I recommend you go with the KJV. The only one that I would ever probably recommend aside from that is the ESV. But again, the KJV I think is the way to go. And if you have problem with the language, there are things that can help you, like I was saying with eSword and things like that. But the word of God is eternal. No matter what people try to do to it, it keeps on trucking, man. It's never going to stop. Never going to stop. God wins. You can't change it. So be careful about this. Yeah, Anna, that's. I'm glad that you could share that, so that it made me think of a message that is probably important to a lot of people. Brittany says YouTube Premium. I can't do without it. Oh man, the ads, they're brutal. And I think I just like scrolled down the comments a little tiny bit and stopped the autoplay. Oh man, the mobile is brutal. The mobile is brutal. You got to go with either premium, or if there's a way to bypass, I don't even know. Yeah, taught younger sister and daughter to hate. Yeah, okay. So I mean, listen, there's a lot of stuff online specifically with dealing with females, mother-daughter things with those personality disorders in that cluster. So yeah, there are a lot of helpful articles you might want to look up, Anna, because yep, from what I'm seeing here, you're saying that turning children against each other. This is called triangulation. It is a natural pathological tactic by people with cluster B disorders like narcissistic personality disorder. So be very careful. Try to observe what you can. Don't just read something and say, that's it, man, this got to be it. Like, just keep reading, keep going through, keep observing. And I think that this could help you a lot, okay? And remember that these chats are really important. They can be therapeutic to be able to talk about this stuff, because a lot of the times too, when it's controlled by cluster B, one of the biggest things is to shut down conversation so that they can do their tactics unaware, by the person they're doing it against, by the person they're targeting. And always remember that your mom loves you or loved you, just that they didn't know why they couldn't do it right. That's a big thing to recognize, okay? All right. So we have Tihi Candor. I'll read this out. Absolutely. Please, Abidan, be careful not to label others as a cultist or with mental disabilities. It's only constructive criticism to have for you. No, it's cool. It's cool. I'm certainly going to read out your opinion, and we can talk about it for sure. We don't know the hearts of others. We all make mistakes of judging too quickly. God will give discernment. We need to recognize it. Yep. He will. And there are dangers with calling people occultists, mental disabilities. And that is why I say it's important to observe, not react. Okay? It's very important to observe, not react. God does give us discernment. He does give us the way to see. Okay? It's by reading his word and seeing where it reflects in real life. And then seeing where you feel it reflects, comparing it back to the word, comparing it back to logic that you can replicate. Okay? Now, you have to be careful about what judgment meant. When they're saying do not judge, a lot of times in the Bible, it is through hypocritical judgment or ones that's done without love. But through and through the Bible, we are told to expose truth, to expose those who are trying to distort the truth. And we're also taught that we are not to fall into the same trap when you give pearls to pigs, to fall in the same trap of being into their mindset. It's really, really important. But we are called to expose the truth. And when you see enough, when you see people with 10 different accounts and they all have occultic symbolism in them, I will say that they have been manipulated by the occult. Absolutely. That won't stop. If I see that, if I'm being asked to join a team where I am seeing the signs of the occult, I am told by God to discern that and to expose what it could be to others so that they don't fall into the same trap. So bear that in mind. Of course I can err. Of course I can err. But I will need to see some specifics. We can't just say we need to stop all conversation because we can't prove it to someone's satisfaction. First off, by logic satisfaction, we can't prove much at all, except that we think therefore we can, or therefore we are. Okay, that's it. That's all that we can prove logically. I know that there's a stigma of this word, but conspiracy theory means that our theory is a part of the scientific method. With scientific methods, we have hypotheses, and these are the things that I'm following right now. I believe that God gave us the ability to reason and to be able to test all things through the Word of God. And when you start seeing the things, when you start seeing all the signs, doesn't necessarily mean that you know the heart behind it, but we are called to judge the fruits, regardless of how it offends people. Jesus called the Pharisees, who were the top authority. You don't go messing with the top authority. You don't call them names for no reason. He called them a den of vipers. He flipped the tables on the money changers. Like I was saying before, instead of donating directly with shekels, you know what I mean? This is what it was. They were donating, instead of putting shekels into the donation box, or I forget what it was actually called, sorry. But the money that goes, the tithing box, they would change it for something else. And then that puts a middleman into your contribution to God, right? I think that the same thing is happening with the truth here. I believe that the truth is God, the God is truth. And we have money changers trying to get in the middle of that. So I need to be able to call out the fruits as I see them. And though I do understand the dangers of trusting yourself, it's very important that continues. Disagreement, even if it offends people, is necessary. The Bible is one of the most offensive books that are out there. And it's still in my consideration. Like, you can't get any more truth than what is in the Bible. You can't get any more of it. But it offends people. And it may convict people. It may convict people. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. And I get that. But that can't stop me from saying it. Otherwise, I would be compromising on the truth. And otherwise, I would be compromising on my faith in God. So RIP, dear Jeff C., and condolences to all. And absolutely, I hope he rests in peace. But at the same time, he was an imperfect man with problems, and they need to be addressed, lest it happens to us. Very important. We can't idolize this man. Dear Jeff is just, all I'm saying is be careful with that, because we do need to see the truth for what it is. He was not a god. He was not a demigod. And for all the good he did, which we should always remember, we need to see the dangers, the price that he had to pay for doing that. This is very important stuff. What Simon did that day was wrong. People get their kicks doing weird or AF things. Like you said, we need not to react to everything in such an eye-catching way. It wasn't uplifting. Yeah, we need to observe. We need to observe. So, like, if you have a problem with what I say, and I want you to ask questions. I'm not saying don't ask questions, right? If you have a problem with the things that I'm saying, please question me first and foremost. You know what I mean? And talk to yourselves about me. What your opinions. Talk to yourselves away from this chat and stuff like that. Your opinions of me are none of my business. And you need to be able to question this. So don't, on both ends, don't react as in this must be the truth, this must be a lie. Look at what's being said. Follow it for yourself. You need to be able to verify everything. Okay? And I think the things that I'm showing, I think it's quite cogent myself. And where I can err, I'd love to hear your opinion on that. But yeah, what I won't do is when we have like a good chat or something, if I hit something that offends somebody, I can't help that. It's not going to, I'm not going to stop saying these things because it offends somebody. And at the end of the day, I would like there to be the ability for people that are non-content creators to be able to speak to each other in a chat, and to be able to realize that their own talents, their own gifts that they've been given can come from themselves. They don't need to get it from listening to me. My job is to make sure I'm obsolete as soon as possible. This is my job. In doing so, if someone is if they're going to call people idiots in this chat, if they're going to try and slide all this stuff so there can't be any discussion on this, and to scare people into talking, I will deal with it, and I don't have a problem dealing with it. I don't, I think I've shown more than enough information about Jeff, the original reason that I've come here, and I've done it with to make sure everybody has a place, even those people. But at this point, I have nothing to lose. I owe no one anything, just like no one owes me anything. Okay, this is the big thing that we need to see. There's nobody I owe except for God. Okay, and if He's telling me that I need to stay here, or if He's showing me somehow that I need to stay here, then I'll stay here and I'll keep talking. If He's showing me that I need to get away from this, I've had this before. I'm going to get away from this because it's not something that's going to be swayed by my opinion or your opinion. And a lot of the things I say might offend people. And that is something I realize can never change. People will also feign offense just to play on that. And I'm not going to put up with it. Okay, so that's something that's just important. So am I making excuses for my poor reaction or behavior? Now, see, this is what we're going on here. This is what I'm used to seeing. At first, it's talking about because I called Zero Infinity an occultist. And we'll keep talking about this now because I'm seeing a button. I'm seeing a button that I can press, and I might be able to replicate this for you. Once I start calling it out, it immediately starts becoming about me. Okay? And again, this is why I say, very important. I have no problem being questioned. What I do see a pattern of, though, is when I start talking about things that people don't want to talk about, that some people don't want to talk about, it immediately comes to me. Okay? I'm fine with it for a little bit. I'm fine with it for a little bit. And if you have specific points and specific logic that we can discuss, bring it on, and I will. But what I won't do, Tihi, and I did have my suspicions at first, and I am seeing this replicate itself. I'm not getting specific examples from you. I'm getting basically every message is to say that it must be my problem. It must be my problem. If you look at all these comments, I won't hide them at the moment. It's all one of total conviction without true claims, without direct claims. So we'll keep reading this, and then I'm going to move on to other people, because I will not spend my entire time here dealing with this, because I know this is a debate that is not worth doing. So I'm not going to convince you. You know what you know, and there's other people that need to talk as well. Okay, I'll read this out and see if you can see a pattern happen in the future. Just bearing this in mind, I could be completely wrong on this. Don't just take my word for it, okay? But I'm going to read this out now and see if you see this pattern reoccurring, if you can replicate it again, things like that. So moving on, says, you said several were occultists. I have problem with that unless you have absolute proof of your claim. So here we go. It's the same thing. I feel like this is the same person coming in many different things, because it's again and again the same thing. And it doesn't offend me. It's okay. I want to read this out. I want to know if I'm possibly at fault here. But at the same time, if we're not actually addressing the points, if we can't get specifics, but I'm told to shut up unless I have absolute proof of things, that's the problem. This is the problem I'm talking about here. This always seems to happen when I say things that might push a button. There are many Christians out here that know a better way, young man. So this is one that's talking down to me now, and also invoking Christianity. So trying to say, if you were a good Christian, maybe you'll do what I want. This is something that atheists do a lot, right? It's like, well, if you were actually Christian, you'd believe that a woman's right to choose is important. And it's like you would not judge people. It's like, well, listen, the fruits are important to talk about. The fruits are important to talk about. You can use that argument and justify anything, that things should not be talked about without absolute proof. Again, I don't think whomever I am speaking with, I don't think they could define what absolute proof means, because absolute proof, you look at it from a logical standpoint, the epistemology of how anyone would come to truth, I think it's completely in line with the Bible. We realize that there is no absolute proof of anything except that you think, therefore you are. Now, it was a Catholic that meant that created this, René Descartes, that created that statement, but it's cogent with what we learn. It's cogent with what we learn. Our observances are different. They're different. And I would think about whether or not it is projection, that this is judgment. I can't have any views of my observances unless I have absolute proof. Well, I mean, I saw 10 accounts or not 10, but maybe it was 10. I don't know. It was up there. It was closer to 10 than 0. And every single time there was occult imagery in the display picture. I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, talk about this guy, research him all the time? Like, all I'm seeing is occult imagery. Why would I want discord with that? That is darkness. It's darkness. I don't want discord with that. And I don't know his heart. Maybe he's just misled by someone, or maybe he's misleading someone. I don't know exactly what's going on there. All I see are the fruits. And I'm pointing out the fruits, and I will continue to point out the fruits. But what I won't do is continue to focus on the whole I called someone a cultist thing. I mean, I've already explained myself. If you want to continue, I want some specifics. All right. So I'm going to move on because it's important to point this out. Again, making excuses for your poor reaction behavior, you haven't established that it's been poor. I think I've defended it quite well. But again, I'm not getting any specifics to talk about. And this is a pattern that you will see, is that they don't like mentioning specifics. They like mentioning just, it's a given that I'm in the wrong. It must be dismissed. You'll see it. You'll see it keep happening too. Just watch. I gave specifics. You're spinning. I apologize. Well, I just read it out for you. I mean, I don't know what you want. I will leave now. I was interested in Jeff C. Absolutely, that's okay. It's totally fine. You're welcome to come back. But yeah, we won't take up the entirety of the conversation on this. There was a woman I called an occultist, and she doesn't symbols. I mean, see, no specifics. A woman. I don't know. Is it a woman? Zero Infinity a woman? Or Eye Cream Day a woman? That was probably the only one that I called an occultist that I can remember. And I also noticed with Robert J. Morris that he's a little bit too close. Yeah, Eye Cream. Yeah, I'm not convinced that Zero and Eye Cream are not the same person either. And they could be. I don't have any proof in it. I don't really care at the end of the day. Because what I see is manipulation. I see manipulation in the shot. Every single word is capitalized, and there's all these squiggly lines. Instead of simply making your yes be yes and no be no, it's very, I don't like it. I don't. I see problems. I see the problems with that, and I will call that out. And every time I see Zero, I see Eye Cream. Every time. So I don't know what the connection is there. I don't know what the connection is. I can only tell you my observances and the fruits that I see. It's not really something I want to keep talking about either, because I think it's a distraction, actually, talking about this. I think this is exactly what's going on here. It's meant to be a distraction. And this is why I'm going to put you on a timeout for the next couple minutes, okay? Because there are other people that need to talk. And you're basically eating up the conversation. And then what I suspect would happen is that we have the next one that comes in and says, "What's going on here? Just watch. Check it out. What's going on here? Oh my gosh, this is pandemonium. Ah. We'll see if that went through. And I'm not going to ban you. I'm going to put you on a timeout, just so you know, okay? Just so you know. I would like to have conversation. I don't want you derailing it. I saw a great conversation that was up here, and I don't want the, yeah. I see problems. I see problems everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. There are problems everywhere. And I think that Eye Cream comes along with Zero. But again, listen, this is distraction. I'd rather talk about what's actually problems in here, as opposed to just. When you talk about things that people don't want to discuss, what you'll get, it's a sequence of events that happen. It's someone that slides up, tries to derail conversation. And if you put up with it, it will derail conversation. It will stop others from being able to speak and chat. And it completely consumes what's going on. This is intentional. I'm not saying that he's necessarily intentionally doing this. I'm saying that this is a pattern you'll be able to observe, okay? I believe in this case, but I'm not 100% sure that it could be intentional. But when you see the pattern, at some point there's intent there to derail. And then when you start closing that down, when you start, trying to allow others to speak, you'll have another one sweep in, and they're like, "What's going on? Why would you do that? He's a great person. Oh no." And you're like, okay, well, now it's going to consume everything. So calm down. If they don't calm down, then they're waiting for you to keep doing this. And then the only thing you can talk about is this. And then it's like, "You're a tyrant. Shut everything down." It's ridiculous. It's the same thing over and over. And if you don't have to believe me right now, because you could easily think, as the way it's intended to do, that I'm being crazy, and that I am trying to control everybody else, just like just like in all the things I'm saying to other people. This is intentional and it's natural for this to happen. And for these same reasons that it's intentional yet natural, it's pathological, you will be able to replicate this for yourself. If you make a channel and you start going against certain people, you will see it happen to you. You will. This channel, it's because I rustle jimmies. It's because I rustle jimmies that you get this. And you know when you start getting this kind of stuff that you're hitting something that people don't want you to know. Or they want to be able to control this information for whatever reason. And there's a whole bunch of different theories, and they want you to be confused in all the theories. They want you to think that you're crazy for thinking these theories. And what's a great example? I'll use the cliche of a peacock, right? So a peacock is pretty small, and I think it's when there's a threatening, they open up, right? And I know that is also, there's mating things, but to an enemy, once that opens up, that thing looks a whole lot bigger than what it is, okay? And often, even on a peacock, there's the eyes that go around, right? This is actually a better analogy than I thought. Once these people, they're like peacocks, okay? And maybe they don't do it from threatening. Let's assume that a peacock opens up because they're threatened, okay? Just for the argument. They're like peacocks in that way, that as soon as this happens, they open up and they have what seems to be 10, 12, 15 eyes looking at you, when it could just be one person, or it could be 5 people, or just like this circle. And like these are, you hit one you try and go for the peacock, and woof, you got all that, and it's crazy. It's intimidating, man. If you're not ready for it, I'm telling you, you got to be ready for it. You got to be ready to see this. This is why I'm trying to do it for you, because I know how to deal with this kind of stuff to an extent. And you can see it for yourself happen. At least it's not directed at you, okay? And yeah, it's meant to scare you. It's meant to make you feel that there's more weight of you disagreeing against you disagreeing than what it really is. Okay, it's an illusion in a way. It's a smoke thing, and then it always has to be. It's like eyes looking at you. It must be you. Must be you. This is how they work. This is how they. That's their modus operandi. So you have all narcissists will have like 5, 10 accounts, or at least multiple identities. And going into the NBC logo, they all have different colors. So one of them will be very, the alpha personality come. And this could all come from the same person. A lot of the times, narcissistic personality disorder can get confused with dissociative personality disorder. So like multiple personalities, right? And each, just like the NBC thing, it comes in a different color. One will be very nice. One will be very loving. One will try and be your best friend, but it's really a honeypot for information. There's a whole bunch of different ones. Okay. And they're there all the time. Those feathers are there all the time. You just don't always see them. And they open it up according, at least in my theory, for argument's sake, they open up according to how threatened that peacock feels. They don't want to release all of them at once. But if they feel that they have to, you'll get an all-in. And what I did there was force an all-in, and I was able to see things that I wasn't able to see, like that feather that tries to become a mod in your chat channel. And that person was 0. I remember specifically ice cream day, all in the same 10 minutes. Ice cream day and 0 wanted a mod, wanted the wrench so that they could pass a link. Most normal people want to pass a link. So they say, where do I put a link? Did my link not show up? I can still be a smart person trying to fool that. But most normal people, they don't ask for mods just so they can get a wrench. They they ask, and so I listen. If you've asked for a mod, I remember. Okay, this was something I know how this works, and I'll tell you, Ice Cream Day, and I think Chi can actually vouch for this if she would like to. Ice Cream Day and Zero did it, like, you know, one of my first videos that I came out and started calling out RPR and the inner circle and stuff like that, or whatever he calls himself these days. He's going to change it constantly just to avoid responsibility for anything. Right now, it's TMF, I guess. But yeah. So, hey, Abhidam, glad your little buddy is doing good. He's a sweet boy. Thank you very much. He looks like he's doing pretty dang good at the moment. I think he was just chilling, getting some food or something. Oh, maybe I blocked his way, and that's why he's not here at the moment. But yeah, you know, I might do a little quick check on him. Actually, just give me one moment. Just make sure he's around and doing okay. I'm not missing anything. Yeah, we're looking pretty good. We're looking pretty good. He's looking great. The eyes specifically, there was the glossy, well, not cloudy, but glossy. His pupils are normally quite large, but you would almost have to look at him from a side angle in order to see his irises, or irises, however you pronounce it. But yeah, it's looking good. It's looking good. He's still, you know, he's chill. He's losing. He lost a lot of muscle, right? This is the big thing. This is the scary part. So of course he's going to seem a little tired, but no signs of ocular. It seemed whatever the ocular thing was going on seems to be subsiding at a more constant amount. Sometimes it was like in and out, I guess. So that was kind of scary. You never knew what was. He was real limbo for, you know, the first 24 hours of has it been too late? Has he lost too much? But I mean, all things considered, this is looking like a good. I don't know if prognosis is the word for it, but after the first 2 days of observances, we're seeing positives, and pretty much only positives, which is really, really good to hear. And thank you very much for asking. I really appreciate it. And the Cats is even more confused with the peacock. I hope hope that analogy didn't confuse more people. Kitty's 3 years old, or just under 3. So this is the time that it's FIP. And I actually just got the tests back, the PCR test or whatever, and it says, yeah, FIP is positive, but they don't know which kind. It was the ER vets, the ones I didn't like. I called in, and they were like, well, we'll probably have to get you in there again. And I'm like, no, we're not doing this anymore. You've already chosen liability over taking care of my cat. Bye-bye. That's the nice version. I wasn't happy with this person, because, like, I don't know, they were talking to me in like they were trying to pacify with being really sweet, and I was just like, no, you know the situation, you're not even addressing it. Like, I asked them, were they ever going to tell me about if there was a treatment for it, and she was like, oh, I can't give the liability. I was like, okay, this is a waste of my time, then bye. I just didn't even let her really talk. Female peacock screaming to confuse. Well, yeah, maybe that this even adds to the analogy. I just threw peacock out there because I thought it was visually, I just came up in my mind. But the more I think about it, maybe there is an idea to be hashed out there that is really important. So I'll think about that. Casey Kraken, I'll read this out with a grain of salt. This is because it is hearsay, so I just want to preface that. Apparently, according to Casey Kraken, Morris went to Mexico to join a cult, never got to hear what happened with all that. So you don't know what happened, you don't know his heart, and this is why. You don't know, like, I didn't know this stuff. Maybe some people did, and maybe this isn't true, but, like, let's just say I immediately joined the team because it's good to unite or something like that. And I ignored the warning signs that God has allowed me the discernment to see. If I ignore that, then I'm doing quite the disservice to the talents that I've been given. And they're his talents to give me, not that. I'm not talking about no signs and wonders and apostles and prophets kind of thing. I'm talking about the gifts that he gives each of us in different numbers. And we are taught to respect that and thank him for that blessing, and knowing that all power and glory and honor goes to him. Okay, so don't get me wrong on that. But I think the Lord has shown me discernment on especially knowing manipulation or seeing manipulation and being able to go through the understanding of how that came to be with my blind spots. And that's where having fellowship comes in. Is, I don't want a bunch of people around me that agrees with me. I don't want that. Like the reason why I specifically mentioned Chi's straight week of fire wasn't even for her showing the screenshots of Red Pill trying to manipulate her. Okay, it wasn't even that. What I was most impressed with, to be honest, is the fact that she gave me information that wasn't and she listened when I was talking about Q and all that kind of stuff, whether or not I believe it. And I was certainly on my way to believing that kind of stuff, right? She listened to it. She said, I don't know enough about it. And that, first off, and then she starts looking into it because she's concerned, and she couldn't quite prove it at the time. And I am the type that says, if I don't have the proof here, I'm not going to just believe what you tell me that it's a LARP, and so she didn't take that as an offense, and she went out on a limb to give me the information that was very solid from this person, and she wasn't afraid to show me, I disagree with you, and this is why. And that is why I thought that was remarkable, because this free thinking needs to be allowed to happen. If I was one of these people that, when I mentioned the 9/11 thing yesterday, when I said I don't agree that it needed jet fuel to melt the steel, therefore I think that the way it fell is plausible. Same thing with World Trade Center 7. You know what I mean? You had a bunch of people being like, no, I can't believe you just did that. It's like, no, well, I mean, listen, even if I'm wrong, you shouldn't freak out. You shouldn't freak out over that. Like, calm down. Just calm down. Give me some information. Do you have any information that goes against what I just said? And I'll listen to it, man. I'll listen to it. If I want to do that with Chi, I could have just said, you're supposed to be my friend. How could you disagree with me like this? You know what I mean? I could have done that too. Could have done that. And I wasn't just trying to show off that I was like, open to opinion or open something like that. I was impressed. This needs to be the way, not being afraid to speak to people about problems, about disagreements. If we don't do that, this place becomes a big thought, like bouncing walls, a big, what do you call, folie à deux is like fullness of two, but on a big scale, like mass cult groupthink is. I don't want that, and I don't think you guys want that. I don't think anybody wants that. I don't think the people that try to make it groupthink, like say a narcissist is trying to shut down conversation, things like that, they don't want that to happen. It's just they can't control how they do things, right? They don't want to be known as a person that shuts down things, but it becomes a personal offense to these kinds of people if you disagree with them. And that needs to be called out more in this movement. And when you do, yeah, you start getting hit by these people, but you can also be equipped with this information so it doesn't overwhelm you. And know that you're not alone if this happens to you, okay? You're not alone. Not alone. Because that was a very hard thing when me and Jeff split and I had to deal with all this kind of thing. Like, I felt very alone. And that's how they make you feel. And I was lucky enough that I had someone like Chrissy that was able to, I could talk to someone, but they knew the observances and they knew what was going on in a way, but they also recognized that, you can go off the deep end, and that's a very real danger for, even if you think you're 100% in the right, for argument's sake, that you are 100% in the right. You know what I mean? Just for argument's sake, you can still falter, and it's very important to have that ability to sharpen each other. And if you are in a if you're not if you don't have if you have a feeling of being alone when this happens, it can be extremely overwhelming, especially when you have that, let's just call it the peacock effect, that ends up happening each time. You will feel alone if you're not careful. And so don't just have people around you that agree with you to help you. That's not going to help you. In fact, if someone's just always agreeing with you, that should be a suspicious thing. You should be really careful about that. If people aren't asking questions about your behavior and things like that, in a loving way, there's ways to do it, right? Then you probably will end up having problems of introspection, which will be your downfall, even if you were 100% in the right, which nobody is. Some vets just want money. Yeah. I think it was more convenient to not tell me about it, because you can keep getting me in for testing. And I mean, I don't know what their end game was. I don't know why they needed to keep testing me unless to get more money off me. There was nothing they were going to offer that would have saved this cat. Guys, be careful about that. If you got a cat that seems like they had a little bit of an upper respiratory problem, but I think showed up in the test when they were a baby, that's a good sign they got, or like abandonment issues with the kittens or things like that, or they were feral. I'm not saying that you should get rid of them by any means. I think get ready by the 2 or 3 year mark. It could be a virus. Could be that. I think it's a little bit more common than what people are saying, because when I'm in these groups or whatever, we're getting daily people, instead of like people are saying this is extremely rare. Everybody's saying online, aside from that study, they're saying it's extremely rare. Don't worry, it's probably not what you have. Like literally, they say that in a lot of these. It's almost a little suspicious. I don't know. I don't know. It's not something I can get into right now because I'm like too emotionally heated to not give an unbiased opinion on that. That's something I got to work with. I am dealing with a little bit of anger on this, because you're just like, these guys wouldn't have told me how to keep my cat alive, and the guard dog sets in. Then you got to make sure that doesn't consume you. I'm alone when I call a narc out. Often people are. Often, if that narc has sunk his teeth or his or her tentacles and feathers in too deep in certain places, they've already set it up so it's impossible to feel connected with somebody else, right? It's that's their, like, in the background before anything happens. When they feel emboldened, this is what they do. This is, and in the threatened stage, they set themselves up so that they can control the narratives. And that's why you get a lot of people, naturally, the content creators are quite narcissistic. And this is why I'm telling you, there's a lot more than you might think. Yeah. I cannot pretend I don't see it. Absolutely. Absolutely. See, you don't pretend. It's obvious when you research this stuff. It's obvious. It's very obvious. And it shows, oh man, when I first saw this, and I had often I was the liaison from Jeff to other people. And then they were becoming, like, Mario came at me as a flying monkey. And I start seeing this stuff. And I'm like, because I already had my qualms about Mario, because I was pretty well read in the Word at this point. Not enough to call myself anything but a babe in Christ, but I had read enough that I could see patterns that Jesus was telling me to watch for. And Mario was giving me all those symptoms. And I was like, you know what, let's try this on him. Let's see what happens here. It was like, you posted something on theology of something one time, and I don't agree with this. I think this is not what the Bible taught. Oh, right. Mario tried to tell me that logic was from Satan. That's what that was. Because I was using logic, and he's like, listen, this is all psycho stuff. Like, this is from the occult. And I'm like, no, there is, like, it's very easy to anybody who has read and understood their Bibles that the logic, the ability to reason is God-given. God expects you to reason and make the right judgment. Okay? Anybody else telling you that things like logic are of the occult? Now listen, thinking that logic will prove things, that's a problem, because it cannot. It can only disprove, and it cannot disprove a negative. These are the two things. It can only disprove, and it cannot disprove a negative. Everything else is basically, there's no absolute proof. Okay? And that is reflected in the Bible when it says it's a step of faith, the evidence of things for which we haven't seen. Okay? We can know the God of the Bible as we read it. Okay? We can know the God of the Bible, but it is our faith in God, saying we've seen evidence of his existence and we're willing to take that extra step. We know we don't have absolute proof of this. We cannot have that. We can know the God of the Bible and see his workings. We can see the patterns. And we come with that extra step of faith saying, I believe that this is true. And I believe in you, Jesus Christ. Okay? This is important. The Bible specifically, not only is logic corroborated in the Bible. The logician's fallacy is often that logic can prove. Okay? God is quite clear with the consistency of logic, that you cannot prove anything but that you think, therefore you are. And even then, you don't know what you are. Your heart is, like Jeremiah 17:9 says. This is all cogent with the Bible. And I just couldn't believe that Mario said that. And I was like, okay. So I was like, I'm going to go by the way that you rebuke a brother and see how he acts, right? I go by the word of God. You start privately, and then you ask a brother to help you with that, and you keep that private, right? And you talk about that. And then finally, if they don't listen, if they're just going to turn their head to that, then you make it public so that people will know that you're dealing with somebody that can't handle criticism. So yeah, you start seeing it very, very fast. And you start seeing that there's more connection between these content creators than you think there are, because it's very subtle, and they ask each other favors, and they do things for each other, and they do it under the table. And it's only when you start pressing those buttons that you start seeing the true nature of people. Casey Kraken says, true, the censorship happening in the US and other Western countries is just wrong right now. Whether it's censoring lies or truth or what, the censorship is wrong and certainly un-American. Going back to my statement from 2 videos ago where I'm with Truth Media's law, it doesn't matter if it's true or false. It can be true. It can be false. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. What matters is that the ego of the person that's disseminating the information, be it a person or party or organization, remains intact. And that is a common pattern you will see not just in religious cults, but in all sorts of things. You see it in communism and fascism, authoritarianism, basically. You will see that they often want to be shown as truth, so they're not gonna lie to you if they don't need to. But if it's more important to protect themselves than telling the truth, then they are going to do the former, not the latter. So it's not that they're always wrong. It's that whether it is wrong or not doesn't matter. What matters is what they're trying to do. I don't necessarily agree with this. Did you ever hear the Chris Rock thing talking about when you're arguing with a girlfriend? It's like guys are I don't necessarily agree with this. There are tendencies, but people are people, and I've also seen very brilliant and logical things on both sides. But it was like men focus on details way too much. Women, they're not going to let something like logic get in the way of what they want. And I don't agree with that. I think both sides do it. I think it's easier if you're a guy interested in women and dealing with the complications of that. You will see it more in women than you will in men. And I think vice versa. Chris Rock is not gay. He's into women. And I think that's what's going on there. Let's not apply it just to women. Let's apply it to all. Let's apply it to all, because I think it applies better to all than just one side. they're not going to let truth or falsehoods, they're not going to let that get in the way of their progress. And whatever that progress is, you don't know what the intents. I don't like Jeff was probably more open about making money at first, but he certainly wasn't before. He wanted to do it and hide it. Same thing with Mario. Mario was very, very flirty at first. He didn't want to tell anybody about monetization and things like that. He was just doing it for, they want to present to you altruism, but it's certainly far from the truth. Certainly far from the truth. Going on, pink rabbits. I cannot pretend I don't see it. It's like a manual when you're talking about you're alone when you call a narc out. When you see it first, you see it, the pattern, exactly. It will only drive you crazy trying to prove it. That's what they want, and that's why you always see. That's why you always see, you don't have absolute proof, therefore you can't say this. And that's the thing. You fall into that trap. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't give you license to say whatever you want. I'm not saying that. But if you start believing these people about this absolute proof stuff, absolute proof doesn't exist. I'm sorry. A lot of people aren't going to like hearing that in the truth movement because we all want answers on things. And that's not a good thing. When I start talking about this kind of stuff, you see the numbers, they drop. And it's for a reason. I'm not going to stop talking about it either because I think I'm seeing people that need to hear this message. And I'm very thankful to all those that pass that out. I'm glad I see people seeing this. I'm glad that any information I got to give you can help you to figure this out on your own and question me too, man, because like everybody falls. I can't stop saying that. Can't stop saying that. Sorry if I missed anybody. I'm going to move up a little bit and go right ahead because we're now in the over 2 hours and we don't want to drag it out too much now. But if you have any closing comments or whatever you'd like to say, questions, anything like that, just let me know, okay? Yeah, Anna, absolutely. Oh, thank you for the kind words for the kitty. He's a little sweetheart, yeah. And yeah, it's meant to keep you confused. It's meant to really make you worry about what is true, what is not. This is the nature of gaslighting. And if you see it, if you see the patterns and you're not afraid to call it out, it has no effect on you. It has no effect on you. And in fact, it has much greater effect on them because they don't understand what's going on. And just bear that in mind when you're doing your observances. But this stuff needs to start being called out. If you want to call yourself a truth movement, you have to purge these people as much as possible. Like not purge as in YouTube, metaphorically. Purge the theologies, the ideologies that you can't question anything that has to do with the inside, but you can say whatever you want about the events of the world and truth bears no difference. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter if you don't understand the subject. For example, Red Pill was pushing 9/11 stuff and he has no clue what structural engineering is. And he has no understanding of the report in and of itself. Otherwise he'd address it. He'd address it. And he's just like, no, there's no planes. It's like, no, I saw thermite burning. It's like, maybe thermite was in there. Maybe, I don't know. Do you know it was thermite? Do you know if that was actually like steel being melted? I know what you're talking about, like that cross beam, but then again, that can slide to a point. It just needs to melt. It doesn't need to burn through. And if you see that crossover, maybe it's natural for that to have happened. It bends out a little bit and it slides out. Once that weight, listen, when you have the top of the tallest building, I don't know what the actual weight of that was, but once that starts going, it's those beams are not gonna it's not gonna do much, man. What do you think? You know what I mean? It's gonna collapse in on itself, and it's going to just one after one. It's going to take down what's underneath it that's been weakened. And the further down you get, the more weakened it is. It's just that the central part was taken up at that point. So that's where the snap off has it. Once it gets to the point that it can't hold it anymore, there's no stopping that, man. It's going to take down everything with it. And because the steel can now bend much easier, it's much less resistant to tension. Each one goes down, goes down, goes down. And again, I wasn't there that day. I was there when the hole was still there, actually, but I wasn't there that day. And even if I was, I still wouldn't know. And I don't know why we're listening to people that have no background in structural engineering. And I don't I don't necessarily see in like the thousands of engineers are calling it out. Well, maybe, but I still don't see them actually looking at that report. They're just like jet met or jets, jet fuel cannot be, melt steel beams. That's all I hear. Okay. Um, we have to be able to look at all angles and observe all angles. And then you can indeed speculate on motive. You can. You can. This is how you hypothesize something in any method becoming truth. I believe in the scientific method. I don't believe in the institution of science today. I think it's heavily corrupted by leftism. I think it's heavily corrupted by authoritarians that want you to believe. I think there's ample evidences right now that other things besides pure science, like they like to say, gets in the way. Like I nearly lost my cat because the pure science wasn't licensed yet for cats, even though these people knew about this drug, these scientists, right? Okay, so listen, just listen to me on this. I'm not just defending science, okay? This crap happened. I nearly lost my cat indefinitely, because the failure of science right now, because it's impeded by certain things. In this case, it was by licensing the way that we structure these kinds of stuff. It's too controlled. It's people are going to say, well, that's capitalism, big pharma for you. No, I think actually it's because we have too much control mechanisms on a lot of these things, and you can see that it has impeded on the truth, even though they knew that this treatment is available, that it works, and that it was very likely quite effective in this case from their observances. They didn't want to tell you. They didn't want to tell you because liability problems, and you can't even charge, so they have no money to be made, right? So listen, I'm not saying that you got to go by the science, because a lot of these people are trying to say science is science when really science is my paused field, that there's too many people that have invested way too much to show the truth. Another great example of this is that series. If you've seen Chernobyl, it was based on the fact that the science was available to people because it was in the way. I think I'm seeing buffering. Sec. Yeah. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I'm gonna leave this up. Yeah. So the only reason why the last one got taken down. Sorry, I interrupted myself. The only reason why the last one taken down is I played Imagination Illusion. That's why that one got taken. I think I've cut that part out, and you should be able to see it now. So yeah, I got my qualms with science. Chernobyl, another great reason. Those even like the top scientists, they had no clue what was happening. They were like, "You reactors don't explode. Okay, there's nothing in there that will explode. Like this is ridiculous. Someone in the control room or whatever messed up. What really happened was that they didn't understand that there was graphite that was part of the piston that could, when there was some sort of thing that went on, I'm not a nuclear physicist, okay, so that created the explosion, which blew up the reactor. And they didn't know about that graphite that was in there because it was cheaper and it would make the Soviet Union look bad. They needed power really hard. They had really strong reactors, but they were very, very expensive. But if they could replace that tip with graphite, it was much cheaper. They saved a lot of money. And it was that graphite that did everything in. So I'm not just here saying you got to follow the science of the day. I'm saying that the scientific method is sound, and the scientific method includes hypotheses. Okay, you start with hypotheses, and you don't just work with cognitive bias or confirmation bias. Okay, you work to see if you can disprove that. Each avenue, which avenue, hypothesis, basically, each part of the theory, right? These are important to make. Okay, and if your observances lead you to believe that you were wrong, like originally I thought Jeff was like hiding. Okay, and there was a lot of observances that I saw in my past that would lead me to think that that was the most cogent or most plausible hypothesis. But that didn't mean that I was right. And I knew, even though I was like not kind of sure, but I was like, this is probably what's going down. But we need to keep all options on the table. Okay, and that includes ones that offend people, right? And when I was proven wrong that way, once that happened on that, I wasn't emotionally invested in this. I was like, okay, this makes sense. Everything I see here now with these new observances show me that I was wrong. And I was very happy to be able to admit that. And if I had emotionally invested myself into that and saying, this is definitely what it is, definitely what it is, and I learned this, I would have probably went all in emotionally, and came out with egg on my face. But instead, you look at all possible hypotheses and not just the one that you think is the most true, right? Scientific method can't prove evolution. No observable proof. Again, science. This is the issue that both sides have. There's a misconception on what the scientific method is as opposed to other things, right? Going back to the one thing that I consider absolute proof is that there is no absolute proof. Like, there's only what you can disprove, and you can not disprove a negative. And the scientific method absolutely accounts for this. And this is why we have hypotheses that we try and work against. And if we can't find something that goes against that hypothesis, it can't be ruled out. That's how we come to know certain things. To know, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that we have absolute proof of it. Can we replicate this many times in both controlled and uncontrolled measures, right? This is what science is. And this is how we all come to truth. And this is all, like, look at the Berean in Acts. This is the same thing. They tested everything to the Word of God, right? So the scientific method is on the Christian side. It is on the Bible side. And this is the divide that they want between atheists and theists, right? Or Christians and non-Christians, right? They want to think that they're opposing opposites, okay? And the way that they've set up the mentality, the connotation of what science is, it does split us up. It's like, we just need, like, you're trusting the Bible over the scientists of today. And yeah, then that, I think, is true. I think it's true. That's a true statement, I believe. And that's going to split us up between these two camps. My camp, I'm not going to call it a camp. I'm in the middle here. I'm saying those that think that the scientific method disproves the Bible are wrong. Those that believe that the Bible disproves the scientific method are wrong. Okay? That's what I believe, because I think that the scientific method and the Bible are cogent. And I think it's yet another proof that Jesus is Lord and that God is omniscient. I have no problem with science, the scientific method there is. Okay? Or that is, sorry. I have no problem. I go by the scientific method as much as I can. We all have our egos that stop that process. Just like we read the Bible and we try and follow as much as we can, and we are going to fail at times too, because our ego gets in the way of that process. They are cogent. They are cogent. Don't believe people when they tell you that the scientific method is the antithesis to the Bible. They're not. It's BS. It's BS. Science today, the institution of science, is definitely against the institution of religions. But this is a totally different discussion. We're talking about institutions there. When I'm talking about the theology, the ideology, I'm talking about the doctrines. And they always want you to focus on institutions and things that you can blame. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's all your fault, therefore we shouldn't believe anything that's down here. You know what I mean? They don't want you to dig underneath that and see the doctrine. This is why specific points, they hate dealing in that, because there's a possibility they didn't see it right and they can get egg on their face. They don't like that feeling. They don't like that feeling. That's why they don't discuss specifics unless they think they have absolute proof. And that's why they force you to do the same. But their idea of what absolute proof is has nothing to do with the scientific method. It has nothing to do with science. It has nothing, or the Bible. And they'll tell you to shut up unless you have absolute proof, but then they go and talk about, oh, well, there's no planes. There's no planes at the World Trade Center. You're just like, okay, yeah. Okay there, Mr. Absolute Proof. Hope that makes sense. Again, there we go. There we go. We are at a consensus, if you want to call it there. Or what would you, in logic, you would call that now, if we can agree on something, we call that an axiom, okay? Your predicate, I forget it, in deductive reasoning, your predicate right there was that, science isn't able to reconcile itself with the proofs of the Bible. And you got those people that are, I'm saying that, I agree that the institutions of, but really what I think is the ideology deep down, and where we just came to a meeting, I think anyways, a meeting of what we were talking about is now we agree that God created all things, which includes science, the logic and reason. Not only did he create, he was behind the people most likely that came up with this scientific method. I'm a lot of the Renaissance, because the scientific method really flourished in the Renaissance, right? Most of the Renaissance was dedicated to God. Like most of it. We had a Renaissance because we started being able to read God's word, and it was breaking out of control from the Catholics. And back then, your average person, they had much more faith in a God. You know what I mean? Whether or not it was the God of the Bible is one thing, but they had much more spiritual faith, and they wanted to read the Word of God. And they were told for hundreds of years, many hundreds of years, that they were not worthy to read it directly in their language. And finally, they started saying, enough of that, like enough of this information control. I want to read this, right? And you had Wycliffe, and you had Jan Hus, and you had all these people, the Valdensians, which created the Spanish Inquisition. Like, they were literally culty, but they were like one of the first people that were truly trying to get the word out there. So they were going to make mistakes, especially when the Catholics were hiding it for so long. So I'm not giving the Valdensians like a pass on all their heresy or anything like that. But I think that the truth was there, that they were looking to have the word brought to the people. And in this all came to a head with the Protestant Reformation, saying, you know what, man? You had Martin Luther, and he was like, I'm not going to give up my reason and what the Word of God tells me just because the Pope says it's going to offend him if I say it. That's what it came down to. That's what the Protestant Reformation in the too long didn't read thing came down to. In that one boiling point, he was saying, he was told to recant what he said. It didn't matter if it was true or false. It mattered to save the Pope's image and the image of the Vatican and its control that it had over the Holy Roman Empire, which was very important to hold up, or else they would have, like, Europe would have been crashed by the Horde and by the Ottomans. If they didn't have, it was very important, and it was, like, you needed that if we were to keep the Word of God. Maybe not that we don't have any power over that, but in their mindset,
I got up the store.
Yep. Cool. In their mindset, they believe they were protecting the Word of God. They were protecting their way of life, their religion. You know what I mean? But then it got in the way. This protector became the tyrant. And 96, is it 98 or 96? I think it's 96 Theses. Great, whatever it is, 96 or 98. It's been 10 years since I read them. You should read them. You should absolutely go look up Martin Luther's 96 or not. I want to say it's 96. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but 96 or 98. You'll find it. Please read them. This is what it came down to. It was saying, I'm going to use my reason that God gave me. And if you don't line up with that reason, that's not on me. That's on you. And you saw how the Catholics reacted to that. They had their own Counter-Reformation, but it all comes down, right? the man trying to get a woman finally made England from Catholicism. It wasn't just that. The Protestant Reformation, it took a little bit to get into Britain, and that's cool. And yeah, that may have, the guy that wanted to divorce his wife may have played a part in that, in being the catalyst. But at the same time, the same mentality was growing in Britain, because they're a little bit more isolated, and especially compared to back then as it is today, since they were a little bit more isolated. It did take a little bit longer for it to spread from the Dutch and the Germans and stuff like that. It was originally in Germany, the German parts. It was like Heidelberg or something like that it started. But yeah, it took a little bit. It was going to happen, but yeah, the catalyst is yeah, you even mentioned, yeah. We can definitely agree on that. Yeah. Just so that we're a little bit clear on it. That's all. And I do agree with you. I think it's there's an irony there. Absolutely, for sure. Jelly Bean, says Anna Cat. The protest is still not over. Yet some Christians and Pope say it's over. Yeah, that's what ecumenism is. Type that one out. Just a sec. Go look that up. Give me a second there to reload. Okay, yeah, go look that up, because that is the plan of the Catholic Church, to bring everybody home. And there's just like the peacock, there's many ways to do that. So ecumenism is it often seeks to blur the lines between Catholicism and those that protest against it. Like, most people don't know what Protestant really means. I didn't know what Protestant really means, and I don't consider myself a part of a Protestant church. I like building a denomination. I believe that the Protestant movement is the body of believers rejecting the false authority of Rome. So I specifically rejecting the false authority of Rome, because there are like churches that call themselves Protestant that say that the Protestant Reformation is over, and it's not over. It's not over. The Catholics spent every bit of their resources. They created the Jesuits. They like, that's a Pandora's box that nobody wanted open. I don't think the Catholics want it open, and they're paying for it just as much as we are. So yeah, they basically did anything and everything to stop that from happening, because they knew they were losing control. And other people had things to lose if the Holy Roman Empire and the Vatican collapsed as well. One game that I play is Europa Universalis, actually, that deals with Europe or the whole world, really, but like most of the action is in Europe for this thing. 95. Oh, dude. Oh, where am I getting 96? At least yours is, you could blame yours on a typo. Well, maybe I could too. I don't know. But yeah, whatever it is, we're close enough. It's been 10 years. Please, I'm gonna go look it up after this, because it's such a good read. And it is Luther. Just listen, Luther, whether you're a believer or not, and I'm not saying we idolize people, because just like all the characters in the Bible, aside from God, or aside from God and Jesus, of course, like the two entities, there are no perfect people, okay? And there are people that make big mistakes, and there's people that are misled the longer they go. He had some pretty anti-Semitic views, and if you ask me, I think that was some Jesuits pretending to be some little hats to mess with him. And there's people that have this theory that the Jesuits are little hats really infiltrating the movement. So I understand that. But I think regardless on that, how they formed or who they really are, I think we can both possibly agree, if you look into it, that he was being, just like many people these days, misled to be anti-Semitic, and then be called, everything's wrong because he's anti-Semitic. So look into that. Let me know what you think about that stuff. But let's say, Luther, right up until the Protestant Reformation, kind of like the princes kind of backed off and they didn't want to kill him. They were like, this guy, no, this looks like you get rid of him, and this is no, not. It's not good. We're gonna have to paint him out to be crazy or something, guys. Hold off with your Sicaria. So, but he was. I'm gonna call him the ultimate badass of the Reformation. The ultimate badass of the Renaissance. This was a guy who had pain. He felt pain. He had a hard life of feeling like a weak person. I think. And he saw something that was very wrong in the church, indulgences that they were selling off, time off from purgatory, which nothing in the Bible shows that purgatory is a thing. And every sin that you commit in the Catholic doctrine is that you have to spend more time in purgatory. Okay, so you're not going to hell, you're not going to heaven, you're in this limbo, and you got to pay this off for every sin that you do. Okay, it's a great middleman. It's a great middleman, and there's no evidence of it in the Bible. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. It's obvious, and it's either you believe in Jesus and you're with him in paradise, or you don't believe him, that he died for your sins and that it means your sins because you are a sinful person. If you don't get that, and you don't believe Jesus, it's hell. There's a little bit of debate, little bit of room to debate what hell is, but it's not purgatory. It's not what we're told about what the Catholics say is purgatory, okay? That is created as a guilt bank, okay? A guilt bank. So you feel, okay, well, I believe I'm getting my wafers and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll probably end up in heaven eventually, but I better watch out what I'm doing. And I certainly better not talk about the Pope, because then I could get discommunicated or excommunicated, and then I can't take my wafers. So he saw this stuff. And he was like, I'm reading the Bible here, and this is like Jesus is literally telling me to stop listening to these people. What do I do with this, guys? What do I do with this? Okay. And he is at a state of dysfunctionality, I think. I think you see it in the writings. And but he gets this moment of clarity. He's like, we can only prove things by scripture. And that's where the sola scriptura starts off, okay? And it means only scripture can prove. And I think what it means is only reason. Only reason. It's because the word of God is truth. The word of God is reason. The word of God is never confusion. It is one of order. It has emotion in it, but not confusion. So he starts realizing this. And the 95 Theses are his observances of how the Vatican of that time, the priests, the whole setup is antithetical to what the Bible preaches. And each hypothesis that he made and he studied, it was a thesis. It was a thesis of the problems with the church. And he posted, everybody says he posted it to like the church door. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if he didn't or not. Some people say that it was somewhere else in a public square. Yeah, the place where like you would post things in a public square. In any case, what is important is that he did it in public. And this was a big no-no. You can't just go publicly write down things against the Pope, right? So he started getting flashback or flack back from it. And the more he starts reading scripture, the more he sees that this is what happens. This is what happens when you talk about this stuff. And it showed to him that the observances that God led him to see, he could back up by the Bible. And he has to make a choice. Do I trust these men who are going against me and just say, shut up, and the Vatican is right, and we'll just leave it at that, and I'll be okay? Or do I take this chance of my life or whatever's going to happen to me and take God's word and see the clear, obvious difference between what is being taught in the Bible and what's being taught in the church? Okay? And he was emboldened by this. And he started reading things, and he started making mistakes. He started getting a little bit cocky. I'm pretty sure he called the Pope a pig. Or maybe like a cardinal or something like that. It was something. He started getting real. He started getting inflammatory. Okay, and he was even in his last statement that I'm going to come up with here, he said that he was a human. Okay, and that he can err. Maybe I can show this for you because it's so important. But they want him to recant, and every time that they asked him to recant, he was like, "Well, no, I'm gonna do a new a new thing on this, and you're not gonna stop me." And it came to a head where he was summoned to the Diet of Worms. It was called the Diet of Worms. Worms was a city, a very important city back in these days for the Catholic Church. Had a lot to do with the legal proceedings on a big scale of the Holy Roman Empire. And so he was called there. He was called there to be summoned, not in front of a pope, but it was like, an emissary of the pope and the princes of the area, and other princes as well that were called to the meeting. And basically, he's forced to recant these things. And they give him, obviously, they give you an option. This is how these guys work. They need to make you acquiesce to them. That's how they work. And so he was saying, will you recant or not? And he was like, unless I'm convinced you know what? I need to do him the honor reading his answer that was eventually. Just give me 1 second. Because it's just so good. Sorry, guys. I'm not prepared. You are not prepared. Well, yeah, he got boastful. He did. And I mean, like, I think we can all get boastful. It's something I got to watch out too. Maybe this is really a lesson for me and not for you guys. Not that I'm giving you a lesson. You know what I mean? Maybe the true lesson to be learned is for me. Luther, Diet of Worms, speech. It's called the Here I Stand speech. See if I can get the text real quick. Edict of Worms. Sick. Some Jesuit probably scrubbed it from the Wikipedia. Let me try and find somewhere else. It's the Jesuits, man. One sec. Here I stand. Yeah, he got caught up in the moment, is what I think happened. They make it quite hard to find on Google. I know it was never this hard to do. Listen, what about DuckDuckGo? If someone can find me the speech, by the way, Vic, if you know the long, I don't want to just say here I stand, I can do no other. I think this is really important to talk about because it's talking about reason. DuckDuckGo, probably easier to get. Looked like it was intentionally scrubbed to hear all this. Martin Luther, or no, because then they'll just flood it with Martin Luther King. Luther. Diet of Worms, unless I am convinced. Okay, I think I got it. Listen, all right, so I didn't want that little hiatus to ruin the moment here. You got to bear in mind that this guy just talks smack about the Pope. He's got some things to truly answer for, okay? And he does say that he takes back the harsh words he said to people at the Diet of Worms, okay? Or sorry, what he said in his writings. So he recants that part in the Diet of Worms, thinking he's acted too harshly. But I'll just give you the last part when they're saying, do you recant the things about the doctrines They're like, they want that gone. They don't ever want people to ever repeat that again. It wasn't even the attacks. They loved the attacks on people. They love making it about people. What they really don't want you to talk about is the doctrine and the theology and the epistemology behind it. Because if you start thinking for yourself, they can't control you, right? This is what they wanted gone. And then when they force him to give a yes or no, he says, unless I am convinced by proofs from the scriptures or from scriptures or by plain and clear reasons and arguments, I can and will not retract, for it is neither safe nor wise to do anything against conscience. Here I stand, I can do no other. God help me. Amen. And I think the God help me gets me every time. It gets me every time because you've got to realize the enormity of this statement. He was at a trial against him for talking about, and you could see what happened in the past 24. I'm not saying I'm Luther. I got nothing on Luther, man. Luther is like, hats off to an imperfect man. I got to say, you know what I mean? He's an imperfect man. But they could not handle him saying, I need to think for myself. Of course, the Vatican won't show it. They still want to get you out of scripture, right? They still want you to get out of this reason. And this kind of stuff is happening. And you will be attacked if you say things that go against the powers that be that the MSM or people who are trying to take over the truth movement with grifting, things like that, or intelligence agents. There's a whole bunch of different things. But you can't deny what you see. You can't deny what you see. You can't deny the clear patterns that show. If you see them and you don't notice them, if you pretend not to notice them, you're doing a disservice to your conscience. And he could take it no more. He could take it no more. And he was everything that I've had to deal with before, he had to deal with, except it was the Pope, the actual Pope of Rome. And the Vatican institutions. And again, it wasn't just the Vatican City back then. There was a massive papal state that was an authoritarian regime. And then on top of that, you had the Holy Roman Empire, which is essentially all of Germany, and all of that power weighing down on this one man and this stuff that he was saying to start waking up people to what the Vatican were doing. And that you have a way out of this. You have a way out of this. It's the scripture. And not just listening to some priest, you know what I mean? He was teaching that. They couldn't handle it. And in this flashpoint moment of a trial where all the eyes are on him, that's what he says. That takes some set of cojones. Let's give him that. Let's give him that credit. Man. Just thinking about the enormity, like, almost makes me tear up. Like, we can only, if we consider ourselves truthers, we can only wish that we come to a day that taking a stand, we get a chance to take a stand like that and not be afraid of making mistakes. Okay. And I'm not saying that you could just go and sin. And that's not what I'm saying. Okay. But not letting people try to think, to place doubt in you for no good reason. If they don't have a real reason not to do it, they will certainly try and make it look like it by many different ways. But you will see that it will reveal itself to you as you stand your ground, like Luther did. So yeah, that is probably going to start wrapping this up. Did anybody ever research the Borgias and the debauchery that went on while he was Pope? Bunch of perverts. Absolutely. The ball of chestnuts. I don't know about the ball of chestnuts. I know that they like their ricin poisoning. The cup of Borgia was ricin, and they look like chestnuts. Ricin kind of looks like chestnuts. So just to let you know, one of the founding members of the Jesuit order was a Borgia. His last name was Borgia. I forget which one it was, but he was like the financial contributor that really got them going. No, you're not banned. I told you you're not banned. Teehee. I'm just saying you can't go taking over the conversation with just nonstop accusation. You know what I mean? Without real specifics, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I will time you out again if you want to try and derail conversation like that. I have no problem doing it, my friend. And I'll say it publicly. But if you're cool and you're just asking questions, I'm okay with that. But you and I both know that there's a boundary now. That's the main thing. Honestly, I thought you were a Muslim when I first saw you. Yeah, I know. I saw the hat and the beard. When you said you were from Newfoundland, yeah, well, we got a few here now. But no, I'm not a Muslim. And yeah, I also know, I know the beard thing. Hey man, what was his name? A lot of them, they had beards back then like that, but they don't have the long hair. I know this is pretty shameful to have, actually. I will get rid of it when I can. He was Orthodox Jew. Well, I mean, I don't know how you would think that. But no, this is a northern, I guess, I guess it came from my British side of the family. They're from West Britain, I guess they hailed from, Normans. So yeah, this is like a northeast nose, not a little hat one. But I can see that too. And I think this starts getting curly here, actually, over on this side. One of them, they start getting curly if I don't play with them. That's why I always play with them, so it doesn't look like Hasidic. I don't know what they're called, the curly things. Am I missing anything else? If we always realize, like Paul, that we are wretched, we'll be fine. Down with that. Pope Frankenstein. Hey, maybe. It's Bergoglio or something. I thought it was Bergoglio, but I think it's Borgiolio. I can't say it right. But Borgiolio. Yeah, could be Borgia. Dude, maybe. I don't know the etymology of his last name. I know that it looks very much like Bergia. Looks like how a Spanish transliteration would work. Bergoglio. Maybe, man. Could be. Yeah, I forget his first name too. I know it's not Francis, but I know his last name is Bergoglio, or whatever, however it's pronounced. The Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman, nor an actual empire. It's yeah. I guess I got no argument there. You know, it was yeah. I'm trying to poke holes in it. Can't find it. Can't find it. It was like a collective. It was like a collective of principalities, really, that protected each other. And yeah, it wasn't holy. It was very secular. It was secular under the pretext of holy stuff. I think it was natural. Is it? I don't. You got to bear in mind, if the Holy Roman Empire, with Austria as the big brother and Hungary as like a kind of a junior partner in that, they were like the head protectors, right? And they were also this bastion of defense against the Ottomans as they were encroaching into the Balkans. And before that, you also had the Horde make it as far as Ukraine. And even Hungary, you had the Magyar Horde, Magyar. So they both the Hordes and the early Muslims, they cut real deep into Europe. And this, I see why it needed to happen. And on top of that, you can't deny that there's many good things that came from the Roman Empire, right? These guys were warring factions that were about to get run over. They were about to get run over by big actual empires. And maybe that's why they put empire in the name. because you had the Mongols, you had the Ottomans. They were taking over everything. They were absolutists. Mongols were a little bit less collective, but still, same thing kind of going on. And they spread and they take over things. And if they didn't create the Holy Roman Empire, which then fostered this, they still had competition, okay? And they still even went to war with each other sometimes. But there was a protecting factor there when you had all these small states finally come together. Oh man, thanks. Thank you so much.
Catherine notes for it.
Yeah, he'll probably follow. Thank you.
Jumped up on the table, tried to get it.
Oh yeah, he's definitely into this. Yeah, I gotta go check him now. Sorry guys. So without that, I don't think Europe could have survived. Yes, God is, of course, but I believe that God could have worked to create this. Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the Holy Roman Empire is amazing. It's not holy. Exactly. Not holy. Wasn't Roman. And it was an empire because it was a loose collective of things. Maybe they called themselves an empire so that they would look tougher to the Ottomans and stuff like that. But that's me now absolutely speculating. So, but I think it was needed to happen. If not, then there would be no Europe as we know it. If I missed anything, collection of and yeah, I will read this because it's absolutely the case. It was a collection of gangster kingdoms acting as the muscle for the Pope. I don't know too many hierarchies where the gangsters don't end up at top. This is a fallen world, okay? So bearing that in mind, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. These princes were gangsters, and they basically went to the whim of what they could get away with in the public sphere, okay? So I'm not saying that this was perfect, but it did foster the Renaissance because no longer there was a certain sense of unity and protection where they were allowed to flourish via competition. And this competition was no longer about killing one another. It was about outperforming one another. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the greatest thing in the world either. But what it did do is I think it fostered the Renaissance. And when Italy was competing against this too, and you had all these rich states like Genoa, Venice, Florence, Milan, or Milano especially. You have the Papal State right below it. You had Naples doing their thing, and this competition then flourished into what is the Renaissance, which is all of invention until the industrial age. 80% of it happened in a place called the Blue Banana. Go look this up. Blue Banana map. Okay. Nobody really wants to show it because it's like the eastern part of Britain where London is, and it stretches down into the Netherlands and then right down into Germany, and it stops at like northern Italy, right? This Blue Banana, they call it, is where most of the population lied in the Roman Empire, or sorry, in Europe. And it's also where like over 80% of inventions before the industrial era happened. Okay. And it happened like during that Renaissance period. And you can see that it's quite correlated to the Holy Roman Empire, and then the other competing people, like especially had to do with trade to get all this stuff out. They worked together. They competed against each other, but there was much more cohesiveness than there was before. I think overall, there were some really good things to be had with the Holy Roman Empire, or I'll just call it the HRE, okay? Because you're right about the holy thing. It wasn't holy, but it was secular. But there was things that we can't deny was a good thing for humanity, I think. In a fallen world, it made it a little bit more manageable. Tihi Cantor, thanks for not banning me. Amen. Totally fine. Like I get it. I get it. And I think you may not even like. Let's just say I suspect you of being like Zero or another like sock account of somebody. There's no reason. At the very same time, you could be someone that's just affected by this control that they like to do. Okay, so I don't want to kick people out like that. You know what I mean? And I do appreciate you chilling and stuff like that. And you're always welcome here, man. And always question me. Listen. I'm not saying that you can't question me or I'm going to just ban you. just be mindful that there are other people in chat that would like to speak, and I see that you're observing that, and thank you very much. I really appreciate that you do. American architecture was copied from the Roman Empire. Well, the Romans copied from Greek, so like it's all classical architecture there. Americans do really like their neoclassical architecture, and yeah, you see it in Washington. You're right, absolutely right. They didn't take it so much from the Greek as they did the Romans, the Americans, that is. But I think it's because, listen, the classical architecture is gorgeous. I love architecture. Okay, it was one of the things that since I've been in the Truther movement that I've spent a lot of time looking at, and like I really appreciate it, and I really love classical, neoclassical. But it's just buildings made out of men at the end of the day. And you're right. American architecture is definitely based off Roman. And I think too, maybe they meant to do that to counteract the Catholicism, because Catholicism, their architecture tend to go Romanesque, but they really started getting into Gothic and Baroque. And at some point then, there was kind of like that's how they pushed into. There was still classical, of course. You got St. Peter's Square and stuff like that. I understand it's very classical architecture. But in your day-to-day places, as it spread out into the colonial sphere, it became more Baroque, and it did have neoclassical motifs in a lot of it, of course, but it diverted from like the round arch to the tipped arch Gothic stuff, right? And they wanted to build taller so that you'd have more magnificent interiors with light and sound. And they did move away from that a little bit. Whereas Americans, I guess this was a sign of sticking to the Republican values of old Rome and Plato's Athens and stuff like that. There's money in the banana stand. Yeah, there was money in the banana stand. That's for sure. The Khazarians might have been a horde, maybe. I mean, that was their extent up past the Black Sea. They kind of came from that area. It was Crimea and Azov region, stuff like that. Yeah, maybe there's some link there. I don't know. I don't know. You should read Sins of the Borgia. I've heard this, and yeah, I will. Listen, if you find me around, just remind me about that later. I'll just quickly go through this. We're at the 3-hour mark, so I just want to probably start wrapping this up there now. Do we have Anna Bananas? Anna Bananas? I don't know. St. Peter's Basilica and Capitol building, same, basically. Is all certainly from the same type of architecture. The Gothic Cathedral in Madrid is gorgeous. Let me see specifically which one. I am partial to French and like the old school French. So like Gothic, I think started appearing in the 13th to 15th centuries in France, or in Europe, in France. And I love those. It's very extremely ornate and articulate. As Gothic architecture started to evolve, it became more about structure and stuff like that. But there's the ornamentation of the old French ones are amazing, and I would assume that Spain, being one of their biggest competitors, tried to outdo them. So I got to take a look. I love this kind of stuff. Madrid Cathedral, Gothic. Do you know the name of it, by the way? I love history. So someone's mentioned history and stuff like that. If I see any interest in it, are you talking about I'm not sure if that one's Gothic. Just one sec. as that's loading. Oh, the Barcelona. Oh, okay, yeah, that one they're still building is gorgeous. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Barcelona is kind of a weird place. That cathedral is really cool. It is really cool, and it definitely draws from Gothic motif for sure. Um, in Burgos, but this is the kind of stuff I really like. I love this stuff. And listen, it's Catholic. I'm not idolizing this kind of stuff, but you got to give credit to how beautiful this is. That ornamentation of the turrets that are up on top. Well, not turrets actually. Turrets are like the things actually holding that you can see holding it up on your right there on the sides, but I think they're called finials up on top. Or the really tiny ornamentation on the side chapels. Just gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. Yeah. Okay. So let's. Yeah, the Barcelona one's really cool. Barcelona is a very interesting city for city planning as well. It's very unique. It has super grids, and you can only turn, I think, left. I think I forget how it works, but also people say that Barcelona is extremely occultic, and I see that as well. That's for sure. Barcelona was like part of a different part of Spain as well. It wasn't part of like the main part of Spain, especially if it was an older cathedral. Barcelona would have been part of Aragon at one point. I think it was the capital of Aragon, if not Valencia. So they got their things going on there. It's not quite like the Castilian Spain. It's got its own Barcelona, and its architecture and its planning has a lot of its very distinctive things going on. So, history lessons with that. I'll be done. It was ruined in World War II. I know, yeah, that one that you're talking about. I mean, they've been building it for hundreds of years, and many cathedrals were. It took hundreds, or at least over 100 years to build a lot of cathedrals. I'm way behind. I find your comments regarding threats to be very interesting. You'll know why after read what I just sent you. Ooh, suspense on that. My starting religion was one of those buildings, very pretty from appearances. Yep, yep. It'll draw you in, and that's what it was meant. Because like back then, the city like the social center was church, right? So there was a very big accent, and this is where Gothic came in. This is actually how it started. They wanted bigger, taller, better churches, and Romanesque. The Roman arch is good, right? But it's not as good as the pointed arch. And I think they got that from Granada, and that started moving its way up into France. And that's when it really took hold. You start making this arch, and it can distribute weight much more efficiently, as opposed to like there's only so much pressure that the Roman arch can take before that starts caving. Okay, and it can take a lot. It can take a lot, but nowhere near as much as the pointed arch. And what that allowed them to do was build much taller. And when you can build much taller, and as you go up, you want to replace stone with something lighter, so glass, right? So not only did the structural thing fit, but then they can get more light in. It looks more beautiful. You can start staining that. The acoustics of sound going up like that, they can really start working with it much more. Even though a dome is pretty cool, like the Romanesque architecture loves to use, and it can have those values as well. The fact, like Gothic and the pointed arch specifically, took us hundreds of years ahead in drawing, and that's actually you see. I think you can see where they adopt the pointed arch from the Islamic countries. And I don't know if Islam created it, but during the Dark Age, it was the pointed arch that you would see it starting to appear in their kind of golden age, the North African area, and Granada, which is the very bottom part of Spain. And they had very beautiful architecture there, and I think it started to spread. And yeah. First century churches met. Yeah, you meet in other people's homes, and yeah, so like I'm saying that, yeah, like the old public way was you meet in a church, and they wanted to make it as beautiful as possible, which is a problem. It is. There's a problem there with that. I still like to appreciate architecture, but as Watchman for You, this is the most important part. Actually, take away from this: the first churches met in each other's homes, and that's probably more important than any building on this earth. Is about the belief. It's not the building. Don't focus on the building like that. And I certainly don't say, oh well, these buildings are gorgeous, therefore Catholics are true. You know what I mean? I certainly don't say that. But I certainly do appreciate architecture. It's just very beautiful when you see the evolution of architecture. Our priest needed the podium to hold himself up. To hold himself, he indulged in more than enough wine. Did you ever see Father Ted? It's that old Irish comedy show. I don't know if that. It's been a long time since I watched it. I don't know if it's like super blasphemous or whatever. So maybe I won't direct people to it. But there was a show that it was called Father Ted, and it was three priests, three generations basically of priests living. A young one, and your regular guy who was Father Ted, and the old one. And every time that two pieces of glass hit each other, he'd wake up and say, "Drink." Yeah. So that's like what I remember from that show as a kid. They're always trying to build like Babylonians. Yeah. You got to be careful about like idolizing buildings too, which is they really tried to do that. Sacred temples. This is important stuff, but I still appreciate the art. Many of the Catholic churches are shut down. Yeah, man, that the kid scandal, it did them in over the past 20 years. And you see some of the places that were the most ardent Catholic are now the most ardent atheists. Here's a good example. Quebec is probably the best example. Like all of these churches are now converted into auditoriums because, like what we were saying before, French Gothic architecture also creates great acoustics. So like a lot of these places are awesome for band halls and stuff like that. And that's what they're being converted into. To be honest, as long as they keep it beautiful or whatever. I mean, it used to be, the place where the antithesis of biblical Christianity was being taught. So I wonder if I would rather it being a band hall as opposed to a church. I wonder, especially if it's a Catholic church. Just again, no offense to Catholic people out there. You can't reconcile those differences between what the Vatican teaches and the Bible teaches. Last century church will meet in each other's homes. It's not even, if it wasn't true, it would be funny. The irony of that it starts and finishes like that. Yeah, last generation Christians are going to meet in homes. Yep. Nice. Yeah. Great call. Gentlemen, hats off to you there. The chapel in Sedona is cool. Frank Lloyd Wright designed it. It's built into the rocks. Pretty cool. All right, I'll take a look into that. Like Petra, like the Catholic Petra. Church basements are good for AA meetings. I know about that. Actually, I do. I do know about that. Never heard of Father Ted. I do have a great joke about a couple of priests. Okay, maybe another day. Thank you. Thanks, man. You're cool. We're good, bro. We're good. I appreciate you understanding. Yeah. Thank you very much. I do appreciate hearing me out. I just want to make sure that we got a good environment. Everybody can chat and get along and stuff like that. And that spreads. It spreads. And the people who want to shut down the conversation, the more they'll start seeing that they can't shut it down. Yep, AA and church basements. Yeah. That's half of them that I was at, I guess, for church basements. Pretty good for it. You got, it's a big place, but it's, nice and tucked away. Good place for it. All right, guys. There's an old theater in Fresno, Cali, that Satanists were protesting Christians who are meeting there and want to buy it this morning. Interesting stuff. Bad Time says, or Anakat says, amen. Bad Time says, nice to see a cogent, coherent fellow Canuck out there doing this thing. Cheers, Avidan. I'm glad I found you. Listen, man, absolutely. It's a tough time being a Canadian and a Christian. It's a tough time. You can feel pretty alone, but there's people out there. Wave or whatever is ending. It's meant to be that way. Looks like I am rebuffering. This might be my cue to finish off. But quickly read off what I got here. Thank you very much. I'm all about laughing some. Absolutely. Let's laugh. Want to be intelligent to know when to be candid and not true to them. Don't worry about it, my friend. It's okay. You're welcome here, Tihi. There's a priest. Looks like I'm going to buffer too bad. This is my cue. Thank you very much. I get a little bit of food to eat. Crack open your Bibles, guys. It's your best defense. And don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you see me take some heat, don't be a protector. That's all I need to say. I'm fine. I got this. I got God, man. He's pretty tough. And he always wins. See you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.